Good to see you.
I never see my eyes closing and it looks like I'm sleepy or something. That's just a filter.
Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as my co-host and IT guru extraordinaire has pointed out, we are at the top of the hour. We're going to be starting today's session. I do want to again express my thanks to Mark, who has been the co-host for these things for the last year and has taken all of the time and effort to put them on to the OC Callers website, make available all the material, and do a lot of the organization behind the scenes for these sessions. Today's session is one that has been asked for a fair bit. I'm just going to hang on a second here. There we go. Let's put that up and minimize that and share the screen. It's a session that's been asked for a fair bit on preparing and planning for dance. Now, we've done a lot of these things in general terms, and we spent a lot of time on programming, but we haven't really talked about planning and preparation and really the difference between them. So there's a lot that goes into both of these aspects. So this is more of a theory and a good common sense approach to take towards you looking at how you're going to call square dancing. So when we talk about planning and preparation, every caller knows, and that's every caller from the brand new first-time presenter to the most experienced master, knows and understands two truths. Good preparation and planning are the key to conducting effective and efficient performances. And number two, if you fail to plan, that means you've planned to fail. Okay, these are two truisms, and they're usually summed up known as the 6 Ps, which are the clean version anyway. Prior planning and preparations prevents poor performance. Okay, what this essentially means is before you can attempt any task or set out to achieve anything, you generally plan the activity towards a fixed outcome. You identify what you want to achieve, and then you prepare all the component parts of that activity to get to that standard outcome, that desired goal. Although some of the masters just seem to get up on the stage and wing it and be successful, believe me, they've planned and they've prepared and they've practiced and they've reviewed and they've revised hundreds of times to get to the point where that seems like they're just winging it. They're not. The planning and preparation process is still there. It just happens a little faster, and that's only because of experience. They're always planning and they're always preparing towards a specific outcome rather than just, completing a tick list to get it all done. So what we have to do is say, what's the difference between planning and preparation? Now, to be clear, planning and preparation are not the same thing. Businesses and organizations know this, and great callers that become great know this, and they only last in that position, both companies or callers, by being able to do both effectively. So if we focus on callers, a great caller will prepare for an opportunity. They don't prepare for everything. They prepare for opportunities, and those opportunities they can create themselves, or they might be an opportunity that just happens because they position themselves to be able to take it when it does happen. Great callers preparation is all about creating the circumstances to make the most of positioning for those opportunities when they arise. So that's no different than being wanting to be ready, a dance comes up, or there's somebody that has to reschedule because of something else. And can you fill in? Yes, I can. I've created those circumstances to make myself be in that position that I can say yes to those opportunities when they arise. So the question is, to be a good or even a great caller, do I prepare for the future or do I plan for the future? And the answer is yes to both. To be clear, preparation and planning are not the same thing. And to become a great caller, you've got to be able to do both. Okay, so what do we mean by preparing for opportunity? Well, preparation is all about positioning. That's positioning yourself. The decisions you make, what you choose to do today are what is going to put you in the position to address any opportunity that's going to come to you in the future. So being successful as a caller is not luck. There was a Roman philosopher, Seneca, who said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. That's usually simplified to the expression, luck favors the prepared, but it's very, very poignant and very necessary to understand that if you want to be a successful square dance caller. So to take this to the next step, there are callers that claim that they were lucky with what happened to them or how their career progressed. However, I would be more inclined to believe that they had done at least minimal preparation to put themselves into a position to accept that opportunity when it presented themselves. Lucky callers are usually prepared callers. That's, a great caller will plan for the future. In fact, they plan their work and then they work their plan. A more detailed aspect of this is programming, but the essential concept is the same. And we've done a lot of sessions on programming. The planning part, though, is all about inflicting your will as a caller on your future as a caller. And the best way to have a preferred future is to plan for that preferred future. In other words, you want to be a successful caller, you plan to be a successful caller. Truly great callers have this uncanny ability to, one, build a clear strategy that defines where they're going to end up and how they're going to get there. And two, they exercise this laser-focused discipline to perform all the actions needed to execute this strategy. And when I say all the actions, I mean all the actions. This isn't just learning choreography or practicing a singing call. There is so much more that goes into the planning phase of me wanting to be a caller. You've got to look at equipment. You've got to look at all sorts of things. You got to look at halls. You got to look at, do I provide coffee? Where am I going to get the coffee? Where can I get the cheapest coffee? What do I want to do? Your outcome is happy dancers coming to dance to you because they like dancing to you, and you've got to identify every single need that you can think of to meet that goal. That's what planning is. And you haven't done anything. All you're doing is identifying. So planning is good. Knowing what you need to do is a great first step. And at the most basic level, you should, one, plan to be a caller. You've got to make that decision. Then you've got to plan to do what you need to do to learn to be a caller. Attending sessions like this, getting the books out, learning what you can do, getting the microphone, looking at how the equipment works, figuring out how to use a computer, all those other kinds of things that will go into being a caller. And that's before you even look at choreography. Okay? You need to plan to achieve the basic fundamentals to fulfill the basics of calling and performing by identifying the requirements of what you need. This is where you're going to start taking on, what are the definitions, all these other kinds of things. Now you've got to plan to take the action to fulfill those requirements. Once you've identified it, you've got to identify what you need to do in order to be able to accomplish that. Then you've got to plan to be in a position to seize that opportunity to use those skills. Yolanda, you made the expression a while back that I've been practicing, and somebody asked me, if I could call a tip, and that led to me being asked to call a dance. Well, that didn't just happen by luck. You planned to be a caller. You positioned yourself by learning the basics. You let yourself get known out there that you were learning to call, and somebody thought you were ready. They created an opportunity to see how you were. But what had happened is you positioned yourself to be able to take that opportunity. And you've got to also plan to call in such a way that the dancers will always come first and always have a good time. And that's just the beginning. Once you're there, the planning doesn't stop. You've got to develop your calling strategy. You've got to plan your own personal training and development schedule. You've got to set goals for yourself to reach and what you need to do to get there and when. You've got to plan your calling and your teaching schedule. You've got to plan your evening schedule. You've got to plan your tip schedule. All of these things happen before you even pick up the mic. Each one of those plans has one goal or the strategy, and that is to do whatever it takes to identify every requirement that you can think of to meet. And when you've identified it, to create the conditions to meet those requirements with a schedule or a plan in order to achieve that objective target, which is, of course, creating happy, enthusiastic dancers that want to come back and dance with you. This is done by giving the dancers a great time, regardless of whatever aspect you're doing, whatever aspect you're calling, or whatever level you're calling at, or whatever program you're calling at. It applies. You've got to plan your pattern call. You've got to plan your singing call. You've got to plan your tip. You've got to plan your evening. You've got to plan your club and class session. And you've got to plan beyond that. And we're still only in the planning aspect. It's very, very similar to programming, but programming is more of nutting out the actual scheduled details and the minutia of the plan that you've developed. Programming is sort of that crossover bridge that goes between the planning and the preparation phase. And believe me, Programming has been covered in many sessions. I saw Betsy came in here. Betsy's done 4 sessions for us so far on just programming, and each one's been different, and she still has only just touched the subject. We could have her on every week for the next year just to cover programming, and we probably still wouldn't be finished everything that goes into it. Okay, so I'm putting this out there. You can contest if you want, but preparation is even better than planning. You still have to plan, but preparation is when you get all of that stuff put together and you look at it and you've got a program, and now you want to prepare for the delivery. You want to prepare for the performance. You've got to have an objective. You've got to have a plan. You have a program at whatever level or whatever program you have, from a single pattern to a full-blown tip or to a full-blown evening or even a year. You've got a program. Now comes the fun part, and that's the preparation. Preparation readies you to do the actual work, not the performance, but do the work to get ready for the performance. You could say that planning is level 1 and preparation is level 2, and programming is a bridge between them. There's a saying that if you plan the night before, preparation of the day of can help you get ready in advance. So if you make sure the night before you do all your preparation and everything else, you're going to be ready for the next day. I can tell you right now, that is absolutely not true. Okay, by planning your activity, you only know the what you need to do and the what the order to do it in is in order to succeed. Okay, you've got to give yourself time to prepare, and time to prepare is the next step. Preparation is it's what gets you ready to do the actual work to get ready for that performance. So remember it this way: planning leads to awareness, preparation leads to readiness. So, and there's some simple tips and hints that can help you with your preparation. The first one is always have your plan ready. Go over your plan and your preparations, what you need to do, and give yourself time to identify everything you can to be prepared. That way, your final preparations and review are done the day of the event. So you practiced and you prepared and everything else all leading up to that event. The day of the event, you make your final preparation, and that can really help you get ready in advance. Even better, preparation the night before can help you remedy any shortfalls that may occur. By that, I mean, have you ever found yourself scrambling to find clothes, or you had an outfit that you wanted to wear for a theme, but you forgot to buy a cowboy hat or a fireman's hat or whatever? Or you get surprised by bad weather, or you spend time looking for your microphone cable just before you walk out the door. All of that is preparation. It's not all about choreography. Choreography is actually a small part of being a caller. Okay, it's the performance, it's the delivery, and everything that goes with it. And choreography is just one of the tools in that performance. When possible, prepare well in advance. The further in advance you can prepare, the more time you have to remedy unforeseen obstacles. Gather your materials for that big event several days beforehand. Review your schedule, review your delivery, practice, refine your modules, or whatever you have to do to fine-tune what you're going to present to the dancers. Okay, you've got to prepare well in advance. You've got to do what I call pre-work. Preparation is about doing the work in advance. You got to read the materials. You got to review the data. You got to practice the activity. It's all about being ready. A lot of people say, I don't have time. I can tell you right now, this actually saves time. People will use it if they don't have any extra time to prepare in advance. I've got a busy schedule, I'm calling all this. It's completely false. Preparing properly actually saves you time. It reduces errors. It prevents reworking things. It shortens the activities when you deliver them because you don't have to try and figure it out at the time. In addition, it has the added bonus that when it comes time to deliver, it takes much less time to set up and go and conduct the activity towards that target objective, keeping the dancers happy. Properly prepared meetings take a lot less time to conduct. The same is true for properly prepared tips or properly prepared evenings. Have any of you ever been to a dance where the caller is there and you're going to switch to another caller, and that you're all prepared, ready to go, and the other caller gets up on stage? Great. Now they got to open their computer and they got to turn it on. That takes 2 minutes to start. Oh, it's updating. Okay, well, sorry, I got to do that. Close the updates, and you open up Square View. Then you find 10 minutes trying to find the record. Meanwhile, the dancers are packed up, had supper, gone home, and you're ready to call and the hall's empty. We've all been there. Preparation reduces your stress. When you're ready, you are confident. When you're prepared, your stress level is reduced because you have less to worry about. You've already taken away most of those factors that are that are going to cause you stress by being prepared. You've identified them, you've taken steps to mitigate them, you don't have to worry about them anymore. Or if they do crop up, you've got something in place to deal with it if it happens. One of the things that I recommend is make your preparation a habit. Okay? Make it part of your calling lifestyle. It's not something you do once in a blue moon. It should be part of your daily calling habits. And when I say your daily calling habits, every time you get up to call, you should, after a while, develop a little routine or like a little mental checklist that you go through. I've got my mic, I've got this, I've done this, I practice this, I know what song I've got my ultimate. And you just go through this tick list. I've got to leave here, I've got to be there, I want to be there 10 minutes early, I want to greet, all those other kind of things. You've got a habit that you go through mentally, and you'll do it every time. Eventually, it becomes your habit, and that habit becomes very comfortable. When you do that with practice and continuity, you're going to seem like one of those great callers out there that everything just seems to luckily fall into place, and their corner is just always there magically when they need it, and they're always at the hall on time, and it doesn't really matter. They've got that other singing call, and they adapt. Oh, somebody's come up and requested. They've got that right at their fingertips. Oh, you put the record on, but I'll get into yours in a minute. And they're ready to just wing it. I can guarantee you they're not winging it. Very few callers just wing it. The trick is to make it seem like you're just winging it. So if you're prepared in advance, remember, few people actually plan out their entire day. Fewer people take the time to prepare their day. It simply doesn't work when you're a square dance caller. You cannot just let it go and see what happens. You can plan all you want, but if you don't prepare, you're not going to be ready. So invest that time in preparation, and you'll be ready to take on the events and seize those opportunities that present themselves to you. This is the hard one. You've got to plan and prepare for the unexpected. Now, it's important to note that even well-planned lessons, well-practiced tips, or thoroughly planned, programmed, prepared, and practiced performances can quickly fall apart. This falls into the category of crap happens. Some of the best conceived ideas and the most thorough planning and preparation will end up being a massive failure when put into practice. When this happens, callers have to be able to go back to the drawing board, reorganize their approach, and create a new plan of attack. Ideally, the real good callers have planned for the worst and have built flexibility into their programs for that very reason. The bottom line is that preparation and planning do matter. None of the planning and preparation that you do will be noted by any dancer on the floor or any other caller unless you do not do it. Then the lack of planning and preparation will show in your performance. Okay? Nobody cares how much work goes into you doing it well. But when you do it badly, they're going to say, well, he was unprepared or she was unprepared. That's where it shows up. Everyone's been part of an organization or two or three at one time in their life. Usually within those organizations, usually someone near the top, creates a number of plans like project plans, operational plans, personnel plans, scheduling plans, and so on and so forth. And the whole thing looks great on paper, but for some reason, the plans and that person that created them fall apart. The reason is preparation is different than planning. You're probably wondering why I have a dancing calendar. Well, you can plan till the cows come home. If you're not prepared, life is going to take you sideways. And it's never more true than when you pick up a microphone and start calling. There's some things you can plan for, but there's many things out there that are not under your control. We cannot plan for things that are out of our control. We can only prepare for things to happen. And if we identify possibilities, we can have steps in place to mitigate them. This is where the difference between the two are really defined. Some callers can face the challenge 10 times, but on the 11th time are still not prepared, and the evening goes downhill and they can't recover it. Okay? It doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't prepare, it's going to come up and bite you in the backside. Other callers can face a brand new challenge, one they haven't even planned for, one they never even considered, but they can handle that uncertainty because they are well prepared and their preparations have made them flexible to adapt. So I asked the question, how prepared are you? How do you prepare for the unpreparable? I've got 8 examples that have happened to me over the last 40 years, and I'll bet you if you just think amongst yourself, you could fill up 2, 3, or even 4 hours, which things that have happened to you or all of us. Okay, you're calling a dance and the music dies. There's still power in the hall, but the music just dies. Can you continue to call, or do you stop? Does the whole hall stop and go on, or do you just carry on, go a cappella, worry about it, finish the tip, fix it later? The power goes out in the hall completely. Can you continue to deliver? There was a story that was relayed here a while ago where the power went out in the hall. Oh, guess what? The guy just had a whole bunch of glow sticks in the back of his car because he was doing something else, and took all the glow sticks, gave everybody a glow stick, and they had a glow stick dance a cappella until the power came back on. They did 3 tips that way, patter and singing call. Someone has a heart attack and dies on the floor at the beginning of a festival. It wasn't a festival, it was a big event. What are you going to do? Because there's still 300 dancers waiting to be entertained. Are you ready for that? You arrive at a hall and find out that the floor has just been waxed and is super slippery. You ready for that? Your wife tells you that your relationship's over. She's moving in with her new boyfriend that you knew nothing about just before you got a big dance. Yeah, that happened to me. You got a bad throat just before the dance and you've called around and you cannot get another caller to fill in for you. What do you do? 120 people at that dance. The floor is packed for your mainstream dance by definition event that's been well advertised, and over half of the floor in attendance are new basic level graduates that do not dance the mainstream program. They're just starting mainstream, so they've come to the dance. My favorite, this one happened to me in Heidelberg. I walked into a hall, 200 dancers. Great. Everyone in the hall, because it was the club, Bob Moffat's club, was wearing matching uniforms, all black and white. Black pants, black skirts, white tops. And I knew absolutely no one in the hall. Never been to that group before. And I was a new caller. Okay. We could easily fill up an entire evening with stories of things that have happened to us at the dance. The ones we remember, however, are the ones that we were able to be most flexible with and adapt and still come out with a good dance, leaving the dancers feeling pretty good about themselves despite whatever horrific thing happened. The dancers will always remember when you were the caller at the dance that was just miserable. Whether or not it was your fault or not, you're the caller. You get paid, you get the blame. Okay? The good caller, and even the great ones, can leave the dancers even after the most horrific event, like the heart attack. Somebody died at the beginning of a dance. That throws off a floor big time. Okay? A good caller can leave the dancers smiling, even if the evening assessment says there's nothing really to smile about. I think of it as like a little child gets hurt, mama kisses the boo-boo. It does absolutely nothing to fix the problem, but somehow the child still feels better. You need to be able to become that caller that says, you're the reason that they're still smiling when there's really nothing to smile about. It's gone bad, you feel bad, but you know what? You pulled it out. That doesn't mean go out and do all the big whiz bang, but that means just pick them up and show that compassion, show that you understand, and give them a good time anyway. You got to do what it takes. Which leads us to, what does it take? Calling a great square dance requires a few components that will make the path to that successful outcome much easier to achieve. You've called many dances in the past. You might be a brand new caller and you want your first dance to be a very positive and exciting event, and you put together everything. Well, putting together all of that stuff takes a lot of work, and you need to combine both detailed and extensive preparation plus psychological strategies to help you reach that plateau of success that you're looking for. And that is, of course, entertaining the square dancers at your event. It's not about choreography. It's about entertaining the square dancers at your event. Choreography is just one of the tools that you use to do that. So first off, you've got to try and plan and prepare as much as possible. So I'm doing a lot of alliteration with the letter P today. Before putting your sound equipment in the car. Before you drive out and go to that dance, you got to put a lot of preparation into it. You got to program your presentation with a clear goal. Schedule your arrival. When are you going to arrive at the hall? When are you going to set up? Schedule yourself, think about it, schedule yourself meeting the executive or the committee that's hired you, and schedule yourself so that everything's done So you can be there to welcome the dancers as they come in the door, shake a few hands, identify things. This helps you identify one or two dancers that might stick in your head and who they came in with, which could help you in a strange hall later on when you see them on the floor. Make sure you have the alarm set on your phone or on your watch or whatever to let you know 2 minutes before the dance starts. You've got to end that conversation you're with, get up on the stage and be ready to start when you're supposed to. You've got to program your dance beforehand. This could be the evening or the event, but in reality, you program from the bottom up. You program your evening scale. What pattern are you going to use? What singing call are you going to use for each thing? What do you want to achieve for that tip? What is your schedule for the dance? Have you planned a welcome tip, a dance fun tip, a workshop, a dance close? Have you planned all that and programmed that into your dance? Have you prepared all of those things and practiced them? All of this has to be done beforehand. Plan your focus for each tip and how you want to build it in the evening and how subsequent tips follow it. So if you're going to do flutter wheel as your workshop, have you got flutter wheel in your singing call? Are you going to use a flutter wheel in the fourth tip or the fifth tip? Are you going to build it up and let them have success with it? You've got to prepare your choreography as much as you can for each and every tip. Your pattern music selection, you've got to select the right music for pattern and ask yourself, why am I using that piece of music? What is it that speaks to me and why should I use it there? You've got to prepare your focus movement if you've got one, and why are you using that focus movement? You got to prepare your modules that you want to use, any special get outs to a right and left grand or to a home or something that you want to do. You've got to prepare your singing call selection of music that matches your pattern, matches where you want to put it in the evening, and ask yourself, why am I using that singing call? What is that going to achieve for me? And then you got to figure out your singing call choreography, 2 figures using your focus movement, if you have one, or the theme of the dance in at least one of those singing calls so that it matches both the pattern call and the music and the singing call. And you do that for every single tip. And then you've got the whole process of selecting and refining it until you have a program schedule. And Betsy gave us a great presentation on that. Tony Oxendine gave us a presentation on that. He talks about the music speaking to him, both the pattern call and the singing call. And he finds the choreography that the music tells him to use, not the other way. Everybody's going to find their own way. And I am a strong proponent. You've all heard me say it. The best way of doing this is the way that works for you. Not the way I do it, not the way Tony does it, not the way Betsy does it. If their way works for you, use it. But if you have a way that works for you better, use your way, because that's what you got to improve on. Practice everything in your music selection for the night with the choreography that you've chosen if needed. Practice your isolated sight by visualizing your choreography and using your modules. Practice your delivery on your pattern call. Yeah, you practice your pattern call as well. Practice your singing calls. Using the modular figures that you have. Okay, I'm a very, very strong proponent of never cite a singing call. Some callers say they cite their singing calls. Some do actually cite their singing calls. More than likely, what they do is they've got something in their mind they set up to a right-hand quadrant, and they sight call using isolated sight to get to that swing your corner position. Yeah, it's sight calling, but still a planned thing. I set it up to achieve this. I set it up to a corner, and then I use isolated sight to use my movement. But you've planned it. And once you've got it done, practice some more. By doing this, what you're going to do is you're going to gain self-confidence. And when you've got a good plan and you're prepared to perform your practiced program, there I go again, you'll have a lot more control of things in your terms of the program of the night that you want to deliver. Believe it or not, this amount of rigid detail, and it is rigid, actually adds flexibility to your evening. If you go through all of these things and adapt them, you're going to find that your evening is very, very flexible, and you're able to adapt to change because you've got little things to pick out of anywhere that you can change because you've planned for it, you've programmed for it, and you prepared it. You prepared alternatives. Because you are planned, programmed, prepared, and practiced, you can control the factors that you can allow for the outcome that you intend, which is a fun night for all. Just because you got it all set out, you can because you have it all set out, actually, you can modify your program accordingly so that when, for instance, Tony Oxendine walks into your dance one night because he just happens to be visiting, I'm going to pick on you tonight, Yolanda, He happens to be visiting Prince George, and Tony Oxendine walks into your dance, and you go, "What the hell?" Well, you can offer a tip and still deliver at solid, great performance. And chances are he's going to say, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll get up and do a tip." And then he might do harmony with it. He's not going to take over your dance, no matter how much you want him, but he'll make you look good. And you will look good because you've actually programmed your evening to follow into that. And yes, that has happened to me. Similarly, if you're prepared, practice, or if something negative happens to your event, such as the heart attack, you're able to easily adjust an evening program easily without stress and still use about 90% of what you've had ready. The less stress on you means the better dance for the dancers, and then having a great time regardless of the situation is always the strategic outcome goal. Always. Dancers will always come first, and if you're prepared, you can do that. So if you want to be effective, by being prepared, you have installed confidence in your dancers and in yourself. Dancers can hear when you're not confident. If you're confident, they're going to be confident in you. It's important to accept the fact that you will not always have everything in control. You cannot control anything, and you don't even want to try. But you can prepare to accept things as they happen and meet those challenges when they happen. For instance, think about when you meet somebody that you've never met before. You cannot possibly plan for every subject of conversation in advance, nor is it feasible to attempt to even do that. But there are many things that you're going to discuss that you have not prepared for in advance. But you can find an interest in things, you can find commonality, and if somebody brings up a topic that you don't know anything about, you can always say, "Wow, I don't really know anything about that. I'd like to learn more." Go ahead, let them talk. It will make your conversation with the new person much more flexible. Similarly, you cannot control how the dancers are going to dance when you get to a square dance. As square dance callers, we might not have the knowledge of what these various dancers' abilities or strengths or levels are when it comes to dancing the program that we selected or the choreography that we selected for that evening. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups.
Boo.
Okay. Goodness. Okay, so you got to realize that as a square dance caller, the entirety of your program is affected by the overall level and capabilities of the dancers and your performance of musical selections. But that overall level and capability of the dancers, you have absolutely no control over. They could be the most wonderful class you could have taught them, but you never know what's going to happen that night. We had Don Beck in here, and he did a session in things that affect the dance: full moon, slippery hall, time of day, the second hand on a watch is broken, a butterfly farted in Tibet somewhere. All these things could affect your dance somehow, and you have no control over it. All you can control is what you control, and be ready to adapt. So some hints and tips. If the floor is weak and sluggish, everything is a little tougher, and the choreography that you've prepared is going to have to be compromised so that the dancers succeed. I don't mean slow it down and treat them like babies, because all they'll do is take that as demeaning. But you can compromise your choreography. You know, if it's tough and sluggish, instead of head square through, touch a quarter boys run. You know, things like that. Instead of swing through centers left, scoot back, swing through center straight. Little compromises like that can really make a change and make success in your dance. Work at being prepared for those changes with some great opening sequences that are interesting, fun, and present easier memorized modules or written sequences through the rest of the night. If you walk in and you can feel there's a downer on the floor, start off high. Not a wow, but you want to build them with interest and fun and present something that they can successfully do that's just got that little bit of interest. Instead of touch a quarter, all eight circulate, boys run, do a left touch a quarter, all eight circulate, girls run. Does exactly the same thing. It's that modular symmetry, but it changes that feel successfully. The dancers, wow, okay, that was different. I better pay attention. And the lights go on. Encourage the dancers to interact, not just with each other, but with you. Encourage that interaction. Talk to them from the stage, talk to them on the floor, encourage them to talk. And if you got a noisy hall, encourage it, but control it. Everybody up to the middle of the great big yell, go over it. Everybody, okay, now spend 2 minutes, say hi to your corner, ask them how their day was. Great, okay, that's enough. Swing through. What the heck was that? And the dancers are going, you can't do it all the time. but you can create that circumstance to get it out of their system, give them that release. And once that release is there, you can control the rest of the evening. Focus on fun. Keep the atmosphere light and pleasurable. Okay? If you're a new square dance caller, then preparing for your dance will be much more involved and time consuming than that of an experienced caller. But believe me, it does get faster and it does get easier with experience, but the process is still very, very necessary. So if you're inexperienced, the first few dances that you call, you may find frustrating and stressful. But believe me, no matter how well or how bad you think you do, you're going to be learning and improving and hopefully getting better in the process as you improve. The good thing is the dancers, well, dancers in general are very forgiving and very supportive of new callers. This doesn't always happen to new callers that start by calling it advanced and challenged, because the dancers have different expectations and expect the caller to be able to call anyway. If a caller is getting up there and calling to an advanced or a challenged floor, they expect that that caller already knows how to call basic, mainstream, and plus. It doesn't always happen these days. There are a few good callers that have started by calling advanced and challenged, but they got back. They very successful advanced and challenge callers, but they're sitting in the newbie callers sessions at caller schools to learn how to call. Those are the ones that become really, really good, and there's a few of them, and we've had a few of them in here already. Okay. Now, the big thing to remember, nobody is perfect. Have a look at the skier in front, have a look at the skier in back. Okay. Even the professionals. It is absolutely useless to strive for perfection when you do anything for the first time or the 10,000th time. It does not happen. It's no different than learning to call square dances. If you set your bar too high and you aim for perfection, all you're going to do is ending up feeling bad because you cannot meet it. So that's why I use downhill skiers. Downhill skiers always explode on impact. It's part of the activity. If you've ever watched a skier fall, they explode, especially in powder. Ski instructors that say they have never fallen in the last 10 years, I always say avoid that person, because they don't try. They will not push you to try. They will not teach you anything. They've got their comfort level and that's it. They don't want to do anything else. These guys think they're perfect, but the truth is they simply stop trying to get any better. And callers that think they're perfect are exactly the same. They've simply stopped trying to get any better. Okay? Regardless of how long you've been doing this activity, you should always try to improve and give the dancers a better time than last time. You may not always succeed, but you should always prepare and you should always try to do that as your goal. The better you get at your craft, the more you will have prepared and practiced, and over time, it does get easier and faster. Remember, the dancers are always to be the winners at the dance, not you. If you're calling to impress yourself, or you're calling to impress another caller, or there's a singing call and Tony Oxendine walks in the hall and you put on Hallelujah because you know he does that to impress him, guess what? You're not calling for the dancer. You've already lost. You win when the dancers win, and you really win when the dancers ask you back. And that's why I'm picking on Yolanda, because Yolanda was prepared. She created the opportunity and all the activities in her plan and done all the preparation to be ready to seize that singing call when somebody offered it to her. And the next time they offered her a pattern singing call, and the next time they offered her a tip, guess what? She was prepared for the dancers to win, and they asked her back. That's the way it's got to work. Now, this is a part that nobody talks a lot about: mental preparation. Mental preparation is one of the most important aspects of preparing yourself for a night of calling. Your mental state is when you're going to optimize your performance, especially when you're under pressure. And that happens in every aspect of our lives. High pressure situations place many demands on us. Calling is an activity that we choose to accept all those demands, all those pressures. And it's definitely one of those situations where a caller has to be mentally prepared to meet the demands of the activity we chose to do. The key is to increase your level of self-confidence. And you do that by being as fully prepared as possible. When you're prepared, you're more confident, your stress is lower, and you can focus on dancer success. So there's a few methods of mental preparation, and these are going to be different from everyone, but these are some that I use. Okay? Some mental approaches are either to take one thing like meditation or take a combination of things like listening to music or getting a short nap, then drinking some coffee. And that becomes part of your routine. I'm going to listen to some music. I'm going to have a short nap. I'm going to get up, drink coffee, and then I'm going to go to my dance. Whatever works for you, works for you. Everybody's going to find something that will, in general, raise themselves to a point where they're in a psyched up state of mind for that big event. And that big event could be the pattern. That big event could be the tip. That big event could be a whole festival. The process works the same for all of it. Okay? Habitual routines for mental preparation develop. When I say that, remember I said build these habits, the routine when you're doing your preparation, the same thing for your mental preparation. Eventually, routines develop on themselves. When this happens, you find yourself repeating the same thing before the dance to relax. Don't fight it. Use it. That's what your body and your mind is saying helps you. Establish this type of routine when you identify it, and by doing that, it can help you stay in control of your own mental state and drive you to that goal to have a great square dance. So the dancers are going to be talking about, giving feedback from the floor. You can feel it. They're interacting with you. They're making that happy noise. Okay, you're going to know when this happens because you're going to feel good inside about your performance, even if your choreography goes to crap. Okay, even if all the choreography didn't work, those dancers are laughing and having a good time and hooting and hollering and having a great time on the floor. You're going to feel good inside about your performance, because even if your pattern call didn't quite work, you're going to pick that up on the singing call, and the dancers are going to remember that they had a good time. They're not going to remember the choreography. They're not going to remember head square through 4, left swing through. Oh God, that's crap. Head square through 4. Star through. Oh, that's hard for the girls. Yeah, they're not going to remember that. But what they are going to remember is they had a good time. Remember, you'll want to call that whole dance perfectly. Perfection is unattainable. I remember once I called a dance in Germany. It was just a tip. I was a brand new caller. I was prepared. I was practiced. My choreography was memorized and also in front of me on a sheet for reference. Okay. Actually, I'll use the dance I did in the Heidelberg. This is the second dance. Frankfurt, sorry. I was so well prepared for this. I knew everything. I timed it. I had practiced. I actually practiced almost every day for a month. My ex-wife was going nuts. Every tip went exactly as I planned it, and the choreography and the sound and everything worked. And I remember I was searching for that perfection. I recorded my performance. It sounded great. The problem was I lost sight of the objective. I was more focused on my own performance. And my mental preparation was fixed on my choreography and the delivery of my singing call instead of on myself and the dancers. Turned out to be one of the worst dances I ever called. Everything worked. The choreography worked. The singing calls were okay. The tune was great. I wasn't off key, but everything was just lifeless and robotic. The dancers had an okay time. They walked off the floor. They said, "Thank you very much." And they walked off. And guess what? I never got asked back to call at that club again, because even though everything worked and the delivery was good and the choreography all worked, it was lifeless. It was robotic. They didn't have a good time. I learned that without mental preparation to get myself psyched up and energized, I could deliver the most perfect choreography, but it was just another way of saying, I am not properly prepared. If you're not up, you cannot bring the dancers up. And more importantly, if you're down, you will always bring the dancers down. That's one of the true things that only goes one way. Don't ever try to prepare perfection. It doesn't work. What you want to try and prepare is the pursuit of excellence. If you pursue excellence instead, if you spent time preparing for the dance and if you worked hard, the end result is going to be excellent, that perfection. Not the perfection you want, but excellence. And excellence is determined only by the target audience, not you. Surprise, it's got nothing to do with how good or how clever your choreography or how smooth your singing call was. That's only a small part of it. You've got to bring them up. You've got to give them a good time. And that's where you're going to be a winner. So let's look at this internal dialogue. We had a little bit of a discussion of this earlier. In mental preparation, the conversations you have with yourself leading up to and during the night's program are going to influence are going to influence how you behave. If you spend time thinking before you go on the stage, I'm going to fail. Oh, I'm not ready. The dancers are going to see how nervous you are, and that's what the dancers are going to perceive, and chances are you've talked yourself into doing exactly that. If your anxiety is high, your body's going to react accordingly, and your voice is going to reflect, oh, head square through. Just that anxiety to the dancers. Your lack of confidence in yourself will show in their lack of confidence with you. You need to create a strong and powerful mental image of that successful, happy, energetic dancer that you're going to call to. This highly powerful image should be made as realistic as possible, including the sights and the sounds and the feelings, even the smells that go with it. You've practiced, you planned, you programmed, you prepared, and you practiced again, and everything else that goes into it. Your package is almost complete. Now you got to get up here. Visualize you're performing well, and it will be just what you want it to be. It'll be a great dance. And if you can convince yourself, you can convince them. And that is essentially what confidence is. So when you put it all into play, as a caller, you need to get everyone on the floor up and dancing quickly. You need to be making it easy for even the most dancer challenged and fun enough for the most reluctant, skilled but smooth and active enough to satisfy even those most snobby dance connoisseurs that you have. And everybody's got the square dance connoisseur on their hall somewhere. Okay? Don't hesitate to prompt a dance all the way through so that no one has to remember what comes next. If you can do that, if you have to, they're going to succeed. If you can prompt the first time, say you use a new focus movement or something in a sequence, then you can wean off that prompting. That way there's no fancy footwork or patterns to remember. You're not workshopping left, right, and center and keeping everybody bored. You can quickly wean off because their muscle memory is going to grab a hold of it. Limit your mic time. It's hard to tell a caller to limit their mic time. A tip or a bracket, in my opinion, should be no longer than 10 minutes, tops. I prefer 8 minutes because I like a 4-minute patter, 4-minute singing call. But these days, 6-minute patterns seem to be the norm, followed by a 4-minute singing call. Your tip should not be any longer than 10 minutes. If you have to teach, and this is only for teaching classes, not at festivals, not at events, anything else, 10-minute patter maximum, and ensure that it's learned. If you can't teach it in 10 minutes, stop and carry on with the next tip. Finish your teach the next tip, and a 4-minute singing call to put it all together. At a dance or a festival, if you have to workshop something, that 10-minute rule still applies. And that 10-minute rule is the patter and the singing call. Even on a workshop tip, should only be 10 minutes long. Always remember that the strategic goal of patter, a singing call, a tip, an evening, a festival, an entire year is one word: connection. What you're trying to create is a community joined by laughter and music and a good time. The goal is happy, successful dancers that share a genuine recreation experience, that connection, and they want to come back more to maintain that connection. Okay? You have to plan to be a good caller. So we're going to take a little short break here. I've got a little bit more on preparing an example. We can look at preparing a single tip if we've got time, but I've noticed my chat window has popped up a fair bit. So there's a couple of comments here in the chat. I'm just going to address those first. How did you deal with continuing after the heart attack in the hall type incident? In that particular case, I was at the hall. The person had a heart attack, and the ambulance gun, they were still alive. They subsequently died. We let them know that he didn't make it at the dance. But we had a lot of people from all over the place at the dance. So we did some songs, but the next one I did was just a general melody dance because they were there to do the square dance. I did the general melody, a gentle pattern, flowing movements, and then a singing call. I didn't do, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, well, why didn't you do something like, a tribute song or a sad song or a memory song? Well, because I wanted to disassociate the dance with that memory. I did an easy song. In fact, I'm going to show that song a little bit later, but it was an easy dance, an easy call that lifted, and then it lifted again, and then it lifted again. I didn't go for the big, wow, high energy, but I kept a gradual building of the floor so that we got to probably where you would be at the fourth tip of the evening. Not at the high peak, but enough that the dancers are still having a good time. They're enjoying the music, they're enjoying that, but they're all remembering what happened. And then later on, we had to announce that, I'm sorry, everybody, he didn't make it. And then I used a tip that said, right, I'm going to dedicate this to thing. And we did Hallelujah. And it was sad. There was tears, but everybody was smiling, not necessarily having a good time. They were smiling because that event turned into a shared connection of community, that everybody felt drawn together by the circumstances. They still enjoyed the dance, but they did it as a remembrance. I have no idea, in all honesty, how did I continue? That's how I continued. It worked because it seemed to be the right thing to do. But I had a lot of stuff prepared for contingencies. That was a contingency I didn't plan for. The next one was about luck. In the long run, luck is only given to the efficient. Helmut Graf von Moltke the Elder. Yes, true enough. I have no idea who sent that to me, but it is absolutely true. Luck is given to the efficient. I would add on to that, luck is also given to the prepared. You prepare for luck. It doesn't happen. All right, let's open the floor up. Anybody got any questions, comments, queries, points? We have absolute silence.
I just say that, I mean, almost everything you said, I do, and I agree with. I mean, I never go to a dance without at least having preparation, even in the beginning when I was a new caller. At least know that, you know, or look at my intended singing calls and have several extras that I look at make sure that I'm not duplicating modules or, you know, stuff like that. And just in case I have a brain freeze, I've usually got a sheet somewhere nearby that I can grab and read if I have to. I mean, even though I don't normally read my patter, I do have it there if I have to. So, I mean, preparation is, and like you said, the main thing is that even though I never used those sheets, it took a lot of the pressure off. So I felt a lot more at ease when I was doing it, because I knew that if I did have problems, I had some other way to get through the tip.
I know a lot of callers, and absolutely correct, Daniel. I know a lot of callers that say they sight call only. The only thing they use a module for is if they prepare a wham bang get out and they sight to that point. Well, yeah, that's not pure sight calling, but it is sight calling. There's a lot of callers that will do this in their singing calls. There's a lot of callers that do this in their patter call. They get up there and they have an idea in the back of their mind, and their idea is they want to do swing through, spin the top, slide through, pass through to a right and left grand, or you know, pass through to an Allemand left, go forward to an Allemand dar, do passo, and you're home. That could be their fancy get out that they want. They know that, they've prepared that. Well, that's a module, but what they do is they prepare their sight calling to get them to that point. They identify that position on the floor and they memorize that position on the floor. Then they come up with ideas how to get to that position on the floor. Okay, I'm going to do that from a corner box or what have you. They'll sight to that. They'll do their singing calls by sighting to that. And then they just do the swing through, spin the top, slide through.
There's still a lot.
And so on. It's all ready for them to get into that final thing that's prepared. And the only thing they'll have written down is that little one module, because it's all, but they've done all that preparation and planning in their head. Their plan is do passo to a home ending. They've set it up. They can see the dancers having a good time. So if I was going to do that, I'm looking, okay, I want to use a do passo to an Allemand dar. I want to use a do passo to a courtesy turn. I want to use a do passo. And they've planned all of this, but they're not going to use it in their opening of their singing call. They're going to use it in the figure of their singing call. Wow, that's a bit different. It's still the same movement, but they've made their plan. They've done their preparation. They've done their programming. They've done their practicing, and they've set it all up. And it takes time. Yeah, they're citing and they're preparing and they're using modules, and that's why it'll work. Rod, was that you that was starting?
Yeah, it was, but the point was, Mel, is even though they quote sight calling, which is what I do, but it's all, there's so much memory involved.
Absolutely.
And that memory has come from experience, from using the modules, from using this, using that. reading and studying the definitions, knowing that, hey, if I call this, I start here, I'm going to finish there. So
Absolutely.
yes, there's sight calling, and as somebody that's inexperienced, it's like magic, but it's not, because it just takes a lot of, over the years of using it, it's stored in the memory that, hey, I already know that if I do this, I'm here.
Yep.
And so
part of memory is not just memorizing modules, but memorizing techniques.
that's true.
It is a memory thing. We actually had a number of sessions on sight calling, and there was one session on sight calling where that very discussion of pure sight versus memorized technique, memorized module started. I think that one went on for about 6.5 hours and never got resolved. But it is one of those things. I'm one of the strong advocates that says there's absolutely no such thing as pure sight calling. It does not exist.
That's true.
Other callers say, yes, it does. I'm a sight caller. I've yet to have anybody prove me wrong, but there are some that are close. But that's a discussion, and I agree with you 100%, Rod, but that's a discussion that we open that one. We're not going to get into anything else.
Okay. Well, I did want to talk about the preparation stuff, and I'm going to back up a couple of years when we only used records.
Yep.
And I'm sure, Mel, you were the same way. You had your record box
Up to about 2 years ago, actually.
Well, you had it organized, and here obviously here's your patterns, but they were organized and in different rhythms and different feel. Same with the singing calls, and hey, I want to send them out the door. There's these. So then we all started transitioning to computers, and I had the distinct pleasure of living in an area where I get to dance to or call with a lot of really, really top name national callers.
Mm-hmm.
But they all says, well, we have to switch over to the computer. And that took a lot of preparation, a lot of planning for them. And of course, there's a couple of those, the gentlemen that helped them with, I don't know, we had a little sticker, they put little stickers on the keyboard, but it was all another way that the top national callers still did preparation and planning on how to use the computer system.
Yeah.
And I mean, so nobody is beyond this. Everybody has to do it. Everybody.
Part and parcel on my computer screen, I've got you sitting next to Jeff Seidel. Jeff asked me to come down, I think it was 2012, to Adelaide for the first time. Somewhere around there, 2012 or 2000, anyway, back a while ago. And part of my preparation was I had to bring my record box with me. I had to ask Jeff, do I need to bring my turntable and my transformer? Because I know very few people use that anymore. And thankfully, Jeff had his old 300 somewhere sitting in the background gathering dust and was able to provide that for me. I was still using it, but I would do the same thing, going through my record box. I'd prepare an evening. I'd have 2 patters and 2 singing calls. There's 1 tip prepared. I'd have 2 patters, and there was little flags in that: first tip, second tip, third tip, fourth tip, fifth tip. And the reason I did that is there's a different type of music for each one. And if I had to be flexible, I would have a different variation of music, but it would always be something that I prepared at another point in the evening, right, that I could always pull. I'd already done these dances. And what happened was the second and the third time I went down to Adelaide, I was always asked to do the same song, Ghost Riders in the Sky. Every time. I only did it the once, but every time I had, and so I knew the third time I had to have that. And then every time I always used to put that record near the front of the box, because I knew anywhere I went, for some reason, that's the song everybody seemed to identify me with. So I always had to have that. No matter if I didn't prepare it, it would always be there. And I would practice that even if it wasn't in my program. So there's little things like that happen. And you're absolutely correct, regardless of what it is. But that's part of the planning. I identified the need. My plan was to go to Adelaide, have a really good time, meet some new people, and give them a really good dance. My programming took me to, what am I going to do? My preparation, I identified the fact that I need to either make sure there's a turntable down there or bring my own turntable. I had to identify those. What would have happened if I'd showed up in Adelaide at the airport and I never mentioned the fact that I still use records, much to Jeff's chagrin and his laughter, because nobody uses those anymore except for coffee coasters. But, you know, Jeff is a fantastic caller, and he greeted me in, took me and got me all set up and everything else. And he's actually one of the early ones. Both him and Alan Kerr, who's somewhere in here as well, introduced me to the crossover to computer systems. Those are things that I had to learn, and that was only in the last few years. So I know exactly where you're coming from. Preparation, you got to plan, identify your needs and goals. Once you've done that, program what you want to do, and then identify, go back to your planning for each step of that program to see how you want to do it, identify the needs and requirements, and practice and prepare them, and then practice it. It's an ever-ending cycle, never-ending cycle. Yes, Betsy.
That was probably the hardest, one of the hardest things, what you just said was for me when we went to the computer, is because, like say, pulling those, hey, you know what? I need to bring the crowd up. So I need to, I need to pull. So, hey, I can reach over in this part of my record box and pull out a song that will take care of the need that the floor has at this time.
Yeah.
It took a long time to be able to transition that over to the computer. Now it's like, okay, I've got them, 1 star, 3 stars, 5 stars, whatever.
I'm gonna be talking about that in the next part of this.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a harder transition to prepare for.
Yep.
But we all have to progress and keep learning as we continue calling.
Guido has just put in the chat that selecting music got a lot more difficult after switching from records to MP3s, and I agree. Betsy, you had your hand up.
Yes, I was going to change the subject, talking about being prepared. I have more than once arrived at a dance to find that they happily informed me they invited their class, who was not fully graduated and was partway through.
Yep.
Now, that's always scary because you don't want to, these people have been nurtured through class, and here they are maybe at their first dance, and you don't want to trash them. So I carry old lists, just white, the lists I carry for when I'm calling, I put a list on the table of what program I'm calling, and they're different colors because that works for me. But I carry pure white ones that are extras and a highlighter. And then you need to go to somebody in the class, because the people who are angels won't know what was taught.
Absolutely.
And maybe the person who taught them isn't there, but somebody in the class, you say, what calls do you recognize?
Yeah, and you usually get an explanation like, well, that's someone, you're in that wavy thing, and you go, I think half, and the centers twirl around a bit, and the others move up to the end to make another wave.
Yes.
Ends in the right
if
and
you
left.
had to, if they had to give the name, that's what you get. But if they see it and they've heard it, they will make the connection, and they will recognize the word on the paper, and then you can highlight those, and those are the ones you start with.
Okay.
That's one.
If you really want to learn the square dance language, ask the dancers to explain a movement without telling you what it is. You'll know if you taught it right.
Yes. And the other interesting sort of story was, no, not interesting story. I carry a Ziploc bag of pictures that make me smile.
Yep.
For those nights that I am not in a mood to call, and there were times, I'm getting better now at not overscheduling myself, but there were times when I was doing umpteen dances in a row, and I was there and didn't really want to be to start. Once it starts, I'm fine, because the dancers get excited and they feed me the excitement, and then it gets cyclical. But I need to get up to start. So I look at these pictures, they make me smile, they put me in a good mood, and then I'm ready to go.
I want to point out one thing that Betsy said. That's what she does because that works for her. That is a key message to take away in every component of your calling, whether or not it's learning a calling technique, a resolution system, a music. What works for you is the best method. And what works for you is always going to be the best method, because if you find something that works better, that now works for you.
And I have one more thing about bringing the floor up. I was in one of those terrible moods. I'd been overscheduled. I didn't want to call this dance. So I picked all the songs that were kind of sad. It was Tom Dooley, you know, poor boy, you're gonna die. Puff the Magic Dragon, and Puff, and the boy grows up, and Puff kind of goes into his cave and sheds scales. And I picked all these songs that were kind of downers, but they were old songs that all the people on the floor knew. They were singing along like I had programmed this dance to make them happy. And it changed me.
Yep. You've got to be flexible. And it's great when that, like I told the story when I did God Bless America again, I had a whole floor stop. I thought, you know, you never know how a floor is going to react. They all stopped, not because they didn't want to dance. They just wanted to hear the song, which is good. I'd like to just move on for a second. I said I'm going to touch on a preparation example. So I'd like to just have a quick look at that. And we'll see where that goes and how that might just generate a couple of ideas. So I'm just going to reshare my screen here. Can you all see that?
Yep.
So this is just an example. So you want to plan, and your plan is always to be a good caller or be better than you are now. So you've identified what you need. You've identified you need your music, your mic, your computer, your knowledge of choreography, your skill set, your toolbox, your mentoring, your patience, your practice. You've identified all this stuff in this great big ether of being a square dance caller. And now you've created that opportunity to be able to present yourself in front of dancers. Okay, not ready, perhaps to call an entire dance, who knows? But as luck, if you use the word luck, would have it, you get asked to do an occasional tip and you get the time to prepare. This situation was created by you. It's an opportunity, and that whole plan works. So I'm just going to look at that plan as I've been asked to do an entire tip. So my scenario is my mentor or another club caller or somebody has asked me, because I've been going to the club, they know I'm learning to call, I've been dancing and everything else, and they've been working with me. We've had several practice sessions with support on the stage from this caller. So I'm calling and he's right there or she's right there to help me through my patter. They think I'm ready to do an entire tip on my own. Wow, that's a big bonus. That's a boost in confidence. They think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready, but they think I'm ready. So he tells you that next week, I'd like you to call. And he says, you know, it's just going to be a fun night of good choreography and good dancing. He wants you to do the third tip. That's usually the workshop tip, but we're not going to do a workshop. He assigns you the movement flutter wheel. And he wants you to use flutter wheel at least 3 different ways in the tip, in the patter, and then you want to use a flutter wheel in the singing call. So that's the task you're given. You're given an entire week. You've created that opportunity. So you're going to plan for the tip. So you plan to get the dancers. Well, my big plan is always give the dancers a good time. My programming is there. I've got a patter. I've got a singing call. I know what I have to do now. I've got to develop all the tools. I identify what they are, and then I plan to do all the little things that are going to help me do that. I program them into my schedule, and now I've got to prepare. So I'm going to plan to get the dancers doing flutter wheel differently and enjoying it. I've got to plan to be successful in my choreography. I've got a plan to use flutter wheel and reverse flutter wheel and say all 4 ladies flutter wheel in my singing call. I want to plan alternative singing calls with a simple flutter wheel just in case the other ones go to crap. So those are all part of my plan. The next part is my analysis. I have to identify what are the target requirements to achieve that plan. And this is very, very basic. There's a lot more going into it, but I'm just doing this very quickly. So let's say the club is a mainstream club and I've got solid dancers, and I know that there's a plus group visiting from a sister club, and I've been told to expect 8 to 10 squares, good solid dancers, you know, and I should have a fairly good floor. Am I going to program for plus dancers? No, I'm going to program for flutter wheel and success with flutter wheel at a mainstream level with good choreography, because I want to impress the dancers, not the other caller, not the plus, not everything else. I want to impress the dancers and give them all a good time. I know that my tip is the third tip. The expectation with this caller and these clubs is the third tip is always the workshop or something a little different. Okay, he's given me that third tip, flutter wheel, 3 uses. I can make it simple, a little bit different. He's given me a focus, flutter wheel, so I can make it simple, a little bit different without making it a workshop. Great. Patter, 4 to 6 minutes. I want a neutral patter call with a beat. So I look at my things. I pick 2 choices. Easy, chaparral, 3 minutes and 41 seconds. That's the length of it. I actually look up how long these things, or I've got 10-20 hoedown. That takes 8 minutes. Okay. I might use 10-20 hoedown. It's a neutral patter. It's got a good beat, and I can watch my timer, and I can always fade out at that 4 to 6 minute mark rather than run out of music and still have the dancers move. So I chose, I've gone through these, but they're alternatives that I've programmed in. Okay. I look at my singing calls. Great. Lifting and energetic. Okay. They're not mass driving things. They're not heavy, but there's something that's good. It's going to lift the floor up. They're easy. The songs that the dancers know, and I can fit the choreography that I'm going to work with this. I actually went in and I chose my singing calls before I chose my choreography, because I'm programming what I want to achieve with the music and why. So I've got two choices for pattern, 2 choices for singing call. So my strategy, I'm planning my strategy here. This is when we go into programming. So let's see, my strategy, same sex only. I want to limit it to same sex only, I should say. So boys flutter leading, girls leading, that kind of stuff. I don't want the mixed boy-girl flutter wheel. My patter call, I want heads, sides, all 4 couples. In my patter call from a corner box, I want a flutter wheel. From a partner line, I want a flutter wheel. From a partner line in a corner box, I want a reverse flutter. And in the patter, I want the combination of flutter wheel, reverse flutter wheel. Okay. I've just thought of a couple of ways of using flutter wheel. That's my strategy. Now I go into programming. I'm actually programming my patter here. My introduction, I want a 4 ladies flutter wheel. My first figure, I want a heads flutter wheel or a reverse flutter wheel. My second figure, I want a sides flutter wheel saved from partner lines. Third figure, I might do heads, sides, mix and match. I want a break figure. So instead of I've done a 4 ladies flutter wheel in my opener, I might have all 4 boys reverse flutter wheel right into that promenade. And I can do that, how? 4 ladies chain, heads pass through partner trade, side pass through partner trade, or something like that, or heads pass through, sides pass through. Everybody reverse wheel around, reverse flutter wheel, pick up your partner, promenade home, anything like that. I'm going to think about that. My 5th figure, reverse flutter wheels. My 6th figure, flutter wheel, reverse, maybe leading to a right and left grand. Now, there's a lot of stuff to think about there, and I may not be able to get all of that stuff in. Somebody dinging me here. Okay. I'm going to have trouble getting it all in, but I need to remember that short works. The KISS principle, we had Daryl Clendenin in here a while back, and he was talking about the KISS principle. He also did it in Don Beck's sessions. Keep it simple and short. Not keep it simple, stupid, or keep it stupid, simple. Keep it simple and short. That works better. There's an adage that your module should never be any more than 12 movements in length total. Never. Okay. This will almost always lead to dancer success, and successful dancers are happy dancers. So remember that. So I've got my preparation plan. I review the definition. I've got to review the definition first. I've got to prepare my modules, because if I don't understand the definition, how can I use the movement? I prepare my modules using the movement. Then I prepare my singing call figures. Then I practice it. And I'll go in that order, working from the bottom up. Definition, modules, patter call, singing call. What I'm doing is I'm programming myself for success. Now, there's other considerations to think about, such as programming yourself for the presentation. What are your needs for that requirement? Planning your schedule for the dance. You got to review and double check everything before going to the dance. Remind yourself, microphone, patter music. I need 2 patter musics. Remind yourself about the singing call. Remind yourself about the primary and secondary. Remind yourself about where you are. It's a workshop focus, but it's not a workshop. So it's got to be something that's going to pick up and build on, because the caller has said, focus on flutter wheel. He's got an idea. He would have given me that for no reason. I got to understand the class level. It's full mainstream. Yes, I got a lot of plus dancers visiting. I may even have A1 dancers visiting and everything else. It's a fun night, but it's full mainstream. I've got to prepare to do mainstream, but I've got to be able to suck it down a bit if I have to. Okay. I also prepare, who do I know in this club? Well, I want to prepare to meet them at the door and socialize with them and see if they're dancing. I know Bob, Sheila, Frank, Betty, Ron, Sam, and Jeremy, or Jenny. I know who they're dancing with. I'm going to make sure I go up and greet them to see what clothes they're wearing, to see who they're dancing with. So I can see it when I get up there, I can look in my pattern and say, right, Betsy's dancing with Frank in this tip and they're in the front square. Okay, I got to remember Betsy and Frank. You know, it gives me that real emphasis. I also got to remember, I want some warm water, a bottle of warm water on the stage, not cold water, but a bottle of warm water on the stage. It'll help me with me. And then I've got to remember, keep my sequences short, keep the dancers happy. So when I review the definition, I go through flutter wheel. Guido was in here. He did a session on call analysis, the call analysis sheet. Everybody does this different. This is just the definition, but you notice right at the bottom, I've looked at flutter wheel. In the call, ladies lead flutter wheel. Some dancers have been mixing it up with Dixie style to an ocean wave. Ladies lead Dixie style, ladies lead flutter wheel. I've got to think about that when I present that to make sure that that doesn't happen. I go through it. You know, what's this styling? Do these guys lead the girl in and start walking behind her and pick up, or do they just stand there expecting the girl to reach her hand out and say, come on, pay attention? I make sure I identify those things. And then what I do is I prepare my modules. So I want a couple corner boxes. This is just something that, or in order to prepare what's going to be unique for you. And I may not use these. I may use them. I may not. The best method is to prepare what works for you. This is one of the things that I do. So if I'm going to be doing something, I call them fixed point modules. Fixed points to me are partner line and corner box, because from there you can do an Allemande left. That is a fixed point in a square, not a fixed, but a fix point. It means the square is already fixed. Okay. So I always prepare 2 corner box. I try and do 2 partner line. And I try and do 2 conversions. And then I try and do 2 resolutions. In this case, I've got something just a little bit different there, but that's fine. So when I look at this, I've got it, and this has been working out for me for the years. And you notice I highlight what I've done in my corner box: reverse flutter wheel and sweep a quarter, flutter wheel and sweep a quarter, flutter wheel and sweep a quarter, reverse flutter wheel, reverse flutter wheel. Ladies lead reverse flutter wheel. Okay, I've got them half sashayed here. Okay, that's a different use, but it's still easy enough to do. I've got another ladies. I didn't do a men lead flutter wheel in here, but I've done all these other kinds of things. And I've done a flutter wheel into a promenade. I've used it a bit differently. Okay, and what I found for me going through this process, this helps. And notice I've also got my 2 patterns listed down there. Okay, I've also thought about openers and breaks. I may not have these written down, but I've thought about them. You know, 4 ladies chain, all 4 ladies flutter wheel, all 4 boys reverse flutter wheel. Everybody do a half sachet, circle left, blah, 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 blah. Ladies roll away, circle left, Allemande left, and promenade. There's an opener. I've thought about a figure for my singing call. Okay, I've got girls lead, reverse flutter wheel. That's my tricky singing call. If it's successful in the pattern, that's great. And then I do a half sachet with the boys in front, pass through to an Allemande left. It's not hard, but it's just a little different. Remember, this is a workshop tip. I've got really good dancers. It's a solid mainstream floor. I know the floor, should be able to get through this without a problem. But if they don't, I prepared an alternative. Reverse wheel around, reverse flutter wheel, and sweep a quarter, veer to the right, keeper promenade. Still a little bit different, but it works, and it's nice and simple to dance. So I can always, I'm pointing to my screen, you can't see that. It's always there to fall back on if I need it. And then I practice. I practice the pattern. I visualize what it is I want to achieve in this tip. I also practice through visualization some openers. So I might do in my pattern, head, separate round 2.5, and when you meet, star through. In other words, separate, go all the way. When you meet your partner, star through. Great. Sides, a right and left through and back away. 4 ladies chain, all 4 ladies flutter wheels, circle left, Alaman left, right and left grand. There's a nice opener. In the middle break, I had planned to say that, or in my patter, sorry, I had planned about the 4th go around, a mix of flutter wheels, 4 ladies chain. Everybody do a half sachet, and from there, heads up to the middle and back. Heads pass through, wheel around. Boys lead flutter wheel. Oh, you're on the wrong side. You're doing the girls' part. That's the way they're going to think, but they're not. But it's easy enough to do. And back away. Sides pass through, wheel around. Boys lead flutter wheel. Oh, here we go again. Then I'll get all 4 ladies reverse flutter wheel because they're on the left side. And then I'll do everybody do a reverse half sachet. I've got one of those in my singing calls. I better use it. And that's just, oh, what are we going to do? Alaman left, right and left, grand, promenade home. Nice and simple. There's nothing really to fudge on that, but it's just a little bit different. So I visualize it. I do the 4 couples. I practice the modules. I practice the mix and match. I practice my singing calls. I repeat. I practice the whole tip again. I take a break. Then I practice it again. Then I take a break. Then I practice it again. And if I need to, I'll do it more times. So long story short, there's a lot that goes into being a caller. Each step of the journey has a plan, a program, and a preparation phase. And that's in each step of this. You got to decide to be a caller. You got to decide to learn the basics. You got to develop the skills you need. You've got to do that in the first presentation. You've got to go through the whole thing about what you want to do. You've got to do that first tip. You've got to do that first night. You've got to do that first class, and so on and so on and so on and so on. This journey never ends. Okay, it's a very worthwhile journey. And for those that have made it successful, they did it basically by following this idea of planning, programming, preparing, practicing, presenting at every phase. So where do I look at it from there? Let's go here. That should be my square view up on your screen, yes? Anybody still out there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so when I look at what it is I want to achieve, I might say, right, so if I look at, I prepared all of these things, and you notice these little things. I got plus A1 because I'm doing an A1 tip, or indication I'm doing a plus tip. On this one, these are my mainstream, basic and mainstream tips. So I've got, for instance, Baroque hoedown is one of the ones I've chosen. So if I click on Baroque hoedown, there's my hoedown. What's that sound like? Nice and neutral, works quite well. But my focus on this one is circle 4 and circle to align. So that was, let's say, what I was assigned to. I've got my circle 4 3/4. I've got circle to align with a girl, boy, boy, girl, girl. So I've got the inside couple half sashayed when I do a circle to align. I've got a normal circle to align. I've got 2 different singing call figures. I've got get-ins, partner line, corner box to resolve, and partner lines resolves. I may not use all of these. I probably will use some of them because it's just a bit different. But I've also noted, you can see right at the top here, I've also noted the singing call that I prepared to go with this. And when I go to my singing call, I've added that so that displays on the screen. I practice this and practice this so that when I play this singing call, this is going to come up. It's there. I can glance and say, right, this is the one I plan on doing. That's my workshop. If it doesn't, I'm just going to do this because it's nice and simple. Circle 4 3/4, square through that. It's the old 3/4 pattern. Everything's 3/4. And I'm prepared. If I'm doing multiple, I might have spin the top. So let's say spin the top was another thing. I prepared 2 singing calls, corner box to corner box to partner line to partner line, a conversion, and a resolve from a corner box and a partner line. Each one using spin the top, a couple just a little bit differently. And the singing call, I've already programmed that to go with the pattern because I practice it. So if I go to So in Love with You, which should be somewhere down here. I've got my singing call with the lyrics, and I've got the 2 singing call figures that I prepared to go with the pattern that I use. I may not use those particular things in the pattern, but it's there at a glance if I need to. I can quickly refresh if I need to. I might just use the ending because everything I've, but I've got, oh, from a column, I'm using a zoom. Oh, I better make sure that that works well. I'm doing 2 spin the tops in a row. Okay, I got to make sure that I'm starting with the Dixie style. I got to make sure that I use that in my pattern. I have practiced this. I have programmed. I practiced the pattern and everything else in the program. So all of those things will come into play. So that's just a very, very quick go through of, let's stop share here. That's just a very quick go through of how I might prepare for a tip or a focus module if I'm asked to call a dance. I'll have something set up. Tom Miller was in here earlier and he was talking, he used to take these things, do the same thing. He'd have it on a sheet of paper, lay it down on the table. He may not use it, but it was always there if he wanted to glance at it. Every caller will find something that they will do, but they prepare and they practice so that when they get up behind the mic, it all seems seamless. I went to a dance a while ago in Holbrook they call it the halfway dance. They call it that because Holbrook is halfway between, I think, Sydney and Melbourne or something like that. It's just one of those towns that's the halfway between somewhere and somewhere. But it was one of those dances, 3 callers, beautiful dance. It went seamlessly. It was high energy. It was high impact. But I have this thing of noting what people are doing. And I can tell you that a lot of the material was practiced beforehand. I can tell you that a lot of the things that when they shared it, they had a discussion about what it was. And the 3 of them could get up on stage and say, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And they say, well, how about this one? Oh, and they start this. Oh, I don't know that one. They'll put on another. All of this was pretty much decided beforehand what they're going to do. They had an idea, but they may have chosen differently, but it makes that performance. One of the callers, I would see them looking at notes before they went up, and they get up on the stage and it just goes absolutely seamless, and they look like they're just making it up on the fly. It's not making up on the fly, because if you analyze these things, you can look at it and say, okay, he did this sequence. Oh, he did that same sequence 2-3 sequences ago. It's a repeat, but the dancers aren't, because he's now doing it from the sides and the heads. But if you analyze that, how do I know that? Because I could tell that dance went very well. The dancers were having a great time. The repetition in there was familiar to the dancers, and it was high energy, and they made it look like they were just making crap up as they went, but they weren't. It was practiced, and it was a polished performance, and it was a really, really good dance. I don't know if Mike or any of them are here. Okay. Howard, yeah, Howard was one of the callers at the dance. There was him and Mike Davey and God, I'm absolutely terrible with names today. And
Chris Froggatt.
Yeah, and it was a great dance. Everybody had a good time. I always liked that dance because I can't remember what her name was, but there was a lady who was in her 90s who was dancing almost every tip and said, oh, it's so nice to have a caller that actually calls instead of treating us like old folks. And they weren't calling slow. They weren't calling exceptionally fast. They weren't calling slow, but they were calling and they were dancing, and it was on beat. It was on par. It was practice. It was a great dance. In fact, I think you got another one of those coming up soon. Product placement.
Yeah, the end of next month.
End of next month. I probably will not be there because I'm having back surgery on the 21st. But anyway, that's just a couple of ideas on how to prepare and program and get ready to present. A lot goes into it. As I said, the most effective way of achieving success is what works for you. If you're confident in all your practice and preparation and planning, you can present that to the dancers. And even if you're not confident, and I said this to Yolanda, please don't feel like I'm picking on you today, but I am picking on you today. Yolanda did a singing call for me the other day, and I said, oh, I like that. And I talked to Bob, and says, because I can't do it as well as she does. She's a new caller. I cannot do it as well as she does yet. I'm going to add that yet. but she had practiced that. She had prepared that. She's created the opportunity that goes in there. Well, the first time I heard Yolanda call, you could hear fear, panic, and nerves in her voice. It was on tune, but you could hear that. When she did that thing, I didn't hear it anymore. Now, she's still a new caller, and I'll bet you're still absolutely terrified when you get on stage in front of people, but you don't hear it as much. Personally, I get worried when I don't have butterflies and I'm not nervous getting behind the mic to call for a dance. When I'm not nervous, then something's going wrong. I love that feeling. It's like, if any of you have ever been on a high diving board, you just take that step, that just when you're past balance, you cannot go back anymore. That adrenaline rush that brings your stomach up into your eyeballs. I love that feeling. That's how I feel every time I pick up a microphone to call, and I live for it. The dance that I didn't feel that was the one I talked about when I was so well prepared and I delivered everything I thought flawlessly. I didn't have that feeling, and it was just dead. It was robotic. It was a good dance choreographically. The music was good. The timing was good. Because I recorded, I listened to it. I was trying to figure out what went wrong for the dance. And what went wrong was me. I didn't do my mental preparation to bring myself up. And because I wasn't up, the dancers weren't up. I was overconfident. I was going for perfection, not for excellence. Floor is open. Comments, queries, points. I know this is pretty much a theory session, but it's one of those things in the background that does have to happen periodically.
Do I have sound?
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no, I was just checking. I have been on a 2-hour session trying to work out sound problems for another type of thing.
Well, you've got sound. We can hear 3 of you.
You've got an echo.
I'm sorry I missed it. Oh, you can hear. Go ahead. 3 is better than 1.
I think you got your reverb set with too much delay.
That's one of the issues we're working on and never figured it out.
You're going to have to use the chat.
Yeah, you're very, very broken up, Bob.
So Mel, I'm going to plan on preparing myself to eat dinner.
And who's going to prepare dinner?
The wife and I, both in combination. So I got to leave. It was
So
a
your
pleasure.
plan, your
Good
plan
job.
is working, is it?
Pardon me?
So your plan is working, is it? You plan to be on Zoom so she can prepare dinner. See, it follows the life cycle.
Anyway, it was a great
we
presentation.
all plan to see you back here, so you better prepare to get up and help her with dinner so you can make that happen.
There you go. Good job. Thank you all.
Okay, bye, Ron.
Right. So now we spend a lot of sessions, and we're going to have a lot more dealing with choreographic management with all the toolbox tools. Like I said, it's very, very important, and it's one of the things that is really overlooked at caller schools, in my opinion, is the sessions on programming, the sessions on preparation, the sessions on being ready, and all this background stuff that goes into mentally preparing you to be a caller. Trust me when I say choreography is great, it is important, but there's a lot of things that are more importanter.
Yes, I have a little checklist that's taped on my laptop. So that, because I realized there was so many different things that I needed to make sure that I had done before I called, you know, with equipment and stuff like that, that I actually made a list so that I wouldn't forget anything.
There was a caller named Jim Harrington that called for, I believe it was the Call Through a Cut-Ups back on the Army base back in Germany. This is when I told this story before. I went to the dance and I was asked, I had created the opportunity, I'm learning to call, and he'd asked me to call a tip. And I had got, this is the one I think I told the story, crisscross. I was calling, I prepared stuff. I was learning to sight call because that's where you started back then. You know, you didn't have to learn all these foundation stuff. Wrong. But that was the mentality of what people were teaching back then. And try as I might and as simple as I might, I was just so nervous that I kept mixing. I couldn't get, everybody was with their partners, but I always had the heads or the sides crossed. And the dancers would go crisscross and hold their fingers up, and I go, oh, I screwed that up again. And then when I got it right one time, they all went crisscross and cracked up laughing because I got it right. And then, you know, I said, okay, well, that's fine. And I was feeling like I was literally in absolute panic. My guts were heaving. I was ready to go, but, you know, I'm faking it. I did a good singing call. It went off well. Thanked everybody, went out the back, and proceeded to smoke about 4 cigarettes in 30 seconds. And Jim, because that's how I relaxed, was coffee and cigarettes. And he came out and he said, wow, you are a good caller. I'm brand new, and this guy was a really good caller. And I said, how can you say that? I couldn't sort anybody out. He says, did you see that hall in there? And he looked at the door. They were all laughing. They were all having a good time. They were enjoying themselves. The energy was really, really up. It was up higher than he had left them, and it was building up. Turns out that crisscross was something he used to do in his club. It was an intentional mistake, and he'd teach them crisscross as a theory of doing that, and he'd see if they were paying attention. They thought I was playing a game with them, that their own club caller. It was familiar with them. I wasn't. I was in total panic. But the dancers didn't know that. And he said, gave me the best advice. It doesn't matter if you call circle left, Alaman left, right and left grand, and promenade all night long. If they're laughing and having a good time, you're a good caller. It's not about the choreography. It's about entertaining the dancers and giving them a good time. And
Yes.
that is what it's about. It's not about the choreography. Choreography is great. It's one of the tools, but there are tools that are more important. And
Yeah,
yes,
we
I
went-
said that intentionally, Bob.
We went to a dance with Larry Ward, and it was my advanced dancers, and they went, and they came out during the break, and we reached a common conclusion. We could go and dance to Larry Ward all night long if he only called a right and left grand. Because when he called it, it was like a revival. You know, the walls came down. He was just, there was such a thrill that he put into it. We didn't care about the choreography. Get that out of the way. Get to the right and left grand so we can celebrate again.
And it's great. If you've ever called a dance where you got all of that feedback coming from the floor, and I don't know if you know what I mean by when I say feedback. I'm not talking about, hey, you can't do that. I'm talking about Ferris wheel and everybody's going, wee, and it carries on and it's hyper accelerated, and Alaman left and a right and left, right. Yee-haw! And they charge, go, and they do all up to the middle and back. Yee-haw! And you get all that emotion feeling back from the floor. You can't help but go up. The thing is, when it's not there, you got to pour your emotion into the floor, and that is emotionally draining. And if you're not prepared to do that mentally, you have to be prepared to do that mentally for every single dance and hope you never have to use it. But I can guarantee you, if you don't prepare to feed that floor, that's going to be the time when you need to. And you are going to be completely drained, and you're not going to have a great time. It's like Betsy was saying, she did a dance and she really didn't want to be there. It was the energy from the floor that came up. She was prepared, but I'll bet you that was a lesson that you learned, saying, you know what, I have to be prepared. I wasn't prepared for that dance, and thank God the dancers were. Now, we all know Betsy's been calling since before Christ was a cowboy, and you know, she's got the skills to pull this off. And all her dancers have confidence in Betsy because they know she's got the skills to pull it off. But somewhere back in your mind after that, I'll bet you had regrets going to the dance feeling that way, and we're so happy that they were like that, weren't you? Absolutely. The floor is open for questions.
I was very happy that it turned around and that I hadn't brought them down.
Yeah. And that is the biggest danger. When you feel that way, it is so easy to bring a floor. It's hard to bring a floor up. That takes management and skill, but it is so easy to bring a floor down. And once you brought it down, you've lost them, because they won't let you bring them back up again. It just doesn't happen. It only happens one way. The perfect example, and there are a couple of variations, especially with karaoke music and things like that, that callers use for square dancing. But have you ever noticed in square dancing, in patter calls and in singing calls, key changes only go one way, and that's up. Okay. A good singing call will have a key change. It will only go up, and it's usually a half tone or a semitone or something along that line. But there's a reason for that. It's because that's the pickup. A key change going up very rarely changes the vocal manipulation that you need, but it changes the whole feel of what it's going to do to that dance, and it lifts you. And that's the way you've got to be with your programming, with your planning, with your presentation. You've got to lift that floor.
I want to add another thing about programming. I don't care how often I've practiced a newer singing call, one that's new to me. I can practice it and practice it and practice it forever. At some point, it has to debut on a dance floor.
Yep. And
it will not necessarily be perfect. I usually put it in the middle of the dance so that if I feel it's horrible, I still feel that I have a chance of redeeming myself before the end of the dance by calling things I know and love.
Absolutely.
I think somebody said in one of these workshops, and that's when I started changing, is if you don't feel confident, fake it so that the dancers think that you're confident, and then hopefully that will reciprocate, that they will think and let
that was
you.
a discussion that's been iterated in many of these. Mike Sikorsky in one, Tony Oxendine in another. I think Betsy, you said that. I've said that a lot. The way to instill confidence in dancers is to be confident in yourself. And the only way to be confident in yourself is to plan, prepare, program, practice. Then do it all over again and practice, 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 practice. It is possible to over prepare. It is not possible to over practice.
Actually, there is. I've done it. I practiced so much I almost lost my voice. I think I had 4 or 5 tips in 1 week.
I can tell you right now, Yolanda, if you practice so much that you almost lose your voice, you have not practiced enough, because your voice is a muscle, and your muscle, it only gets strengthened through use and exercise. And the only way to do that is to practice. So what that says is you've practiced and you practiced and you practiced, but you were practicing something that you needed to change your practice methodology to strengthen that muscle.
I had to learn to change the pitch better.
And as I said in the session, when it all goes to crap, that's a good thing, because that means you're learning something and you improve on it.
And somebody said to have easier music ready, prepared ahead of time for days when you don't feel like physically are not up to par, so that the easy calls are available just in case.
Well, we don't seem to have a lot of questions from the floor, so I'm going to change topics here. Bob, before you came in, before this session, we were talking about the Riverboat 210, the Hank Williams medley.
Yes.
A number of callers have got that and have noted the same thing, but Mark Hart pointed out, because he runs his through a karaoke thing, that the called version vocals and the musical version, there's about a 4-second difference in the song, because I re-recorded that at 122 rather than the 129.
Oh,
remember we were talking the B flats and everything else?
yeah.
Yeah. So
I tried to tell you, when you send it to me, send me the music exactly as you use it so that it will match.
Well, I did. But I think it got lost, because I sent you the B flat, the B, the C, the G sharp, and all. I sent you all the rest of them too, and it probably got lost in the mix there.
Oh, okay.
But if you don't have it at the 122, I can always resend that to you.
Resend it to me, and I will put that up and replace it for the one that's there, and I'll send Mark a copy. Or if you want to, you can send Mark a copy. He bought a copy of it.
Okay. Okay, so I put 3 on there. There's 122, the B flat, and the G sharp A flat.
What? They're all three. You didn't sing it in 3 keys. I mean, give me a break here.
I think
Hey, Lost Man,
one the
I'm
the one
sending
that's
you 3 different keys so that you can send the right one to Mark. Well, I don't know which one you recorded.
no,
it in.
I was just playing because the Hank Williams medley, because Hank Williams is such an anomalous type of singer, and as I said, you've got 3/4, 3/4, 4/4, 6/8, 3/4, 2/4 on the originals, but everything's done 2/4 on the song. So you play with it, and sometimes that vocal range changes. So I was playing with it. I found that for myself, the one I did at 122 was fine, and I believe that's in a B. But some people like different keys, and they not used to Audacity. But the Riverboat 122 is the one that I recorded on, I think.
Okay.
I've just sent that to you in an email.
Okay. I want the one that matches.
Yeah.
KISS principle.
I think what Mark does is he pulls the vocal out of, because he plays with all the technical whiz bangs. He pulls the vocal off the MP3 melody lines and sets them up for karaoke and all that other kind of thing. And when he tries to sync them, says there's a 4-second difference. It's a matter of syncing the words and the lyrics with a 4-second difference. I'm going, oh, okay.
Okay.
But I do so love that song. It was one of the things that we were talking about beforehand, because of you have to syncopate the song lyrics, or as I call it, you have to Willie Nelson the song lyrics, because it's got a dominant melody line that you have to counter sing a different melody line, or sorry, the same melody line but at a different tempo. So you're singing it at 3/4, but it's playing at 2/4 on the opening, which is Your Cheating Heart. Otherwise, it just races and it's hard to get the vocals around it. It's a great song, though.
Oh, I had so much fun doing that. And
Oh, I had fun doing it. I was screaming at you when I was trying to figure it out.
hey, when I went to the studio and told my the guy in charge, the musical whiz bang that was doing it, and I told him how I wanted to do the medley, and he says, you can't do that. It would not work. It's impossible. And when I got done, he said, damn, that sounds good. I remember.
Right, next week, we are going to be having a session talking about the fudge factor. Now, what the fudge factor is building the fudge factor into your singing calls. A lot of callers, newer callers and older callers, are writing singing calls now rather than just pulling a fixed singing call off the, I was going to say off the record, but off the MP3, or pulling up their old singing call figures and just throwing them in, because they don't always work. Not because it doesn't work choreographically, it just doesn't work with the timing of the music. But we want to talk about how do you build these fudge factors in. We're going to be talking about the use of equivalents, setting up in quadrants, different things, different types of endings, what you can add or drop, and all those kinds of things. It's just building the fudge factor into singing calls. So little tips that might help you when you start writing your own choreography. Says you got
send it to me?
Yeah, I just got notification that it arrived.
Oh, okay.
Says delivery to these but no delivery is complete, but no delivery notification was sent by the destination host.
Oh, there it is. It's here.
Yeah. I've taken to putting read receipts on everything these days. Once again, just to let everybody know, there will be no session on the 20th of June, and likely on the 27th of June as well.
No, you got to do the 27th. That's
What's on
my
the
birthday.
Well, I may or may not be able to, because I'm getting spinal neurosurgery done on the 21st, and I'm getting a peroneal knee nerve joint done on the 21st as well. So I could be out of operation for a few days. And as Helen has pointed out, and probably rightfully so, I am not going to be allowed to do this session from my hospital bed. And I've got to take at least a week off to relax. So I'm going to try. I don't know what relaxing is. I haven't found a NATO stock number or a military job number for relaxation, so I just haven't done it. But I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But we'll be kicking back off in July. Sorry, and on June the 13th, I've got Ed Foote coming in. We're going to be talking about resolution, and we're also going to be talking about using Dixie Grand, the theory of the Dixie Grand for the get out, setting up for success. And Ed's going to be coming in to talk to us about that.
All right.
Now, Ed is for those of you that don't know Ed Foote, he's been calling since 1965. He's very, very well known for his choreography. He's considered one of the master choreographers. He's a milestone winner. He's often attributed to being the grandfather or the godfather or the founding father, whatever you want to look, of challenge level dancing. But he calls he calls new dancers right up through challenge actively, full-time caller. Got a lot of material. He's published note services for the last 45 years and still writes actively. So definitely worth turning into. That's the 13th.
A source of wisdom.
Yeah, in New Year, we've got a couple of sessions. We're going to have a look at Colorama. For those of you that weren't in on the Colorama session, I'm just waiting for an email back from the author because there's been a lot of updates to Colorama. If you guys got a second, I'll just pop it up on the screen. I can show you what I'm talking about. So give me 1 second.
You know, Barry Watson just had a thing on Dixie Grand, workshop that I did on Dixie Grand, released in his note service.
Yep. Dixie Grand, it's a very, very popular movement, but it's a very underused movement. And the article that you wrote, Ed's written a number of articles. It's been used in a lot, and a lot of people write it. And they pull out the choreography and they use the choreography and then they put it aside without actually understanding it. And so this is one of the things. I put him out of sessions, and Ed was the first one to get back to me on this, and there we go. All right, so I'm going to just start Colorama here. Give me 1 second. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so for instance, with terminations, there's problems with Alaman left to Alaman dar and those kinds of things. There was, you'll notice that instead of coding on the right-hand side, instead of LC3 for ladies chain 3/4, it now says ladies chain 3/4, that kind of stuff. You're also able to save your sequences. But one of the nicest things that I like about it is
Colorama voice has been started. Vocabulary updated.
Alaman left in the Alamo style.
Yes.
Okay, that sort of fell flat. What's going on here? Alaman left. Why is this not working?
Get up to all. Yeah, there you go.
Alaman left. Alamo style. Okay, so that doesn't do it, but when you call it the timing, let's clear that. No. Alaman left in the Alamo style. Swing through. This worked perfectly the other day. Hang on, let me clear this. I'm doing something wrong here. Oh, no, don't say it. Alaman left, Alamo style. swing through, swing through, and so on. Boys run, boys run, partner trade, reverse flutter wheel, promenade, ladies chain. Sorry, promenade home. You got to say home or it doesn't. Promenade home. Promenade home. Get moving. Bend the line. That's what I wanted. And going through, once it masters your voice, you can also set it up to have speech recognition. So if you do an Isle of Man left, do si do, so it can pick up accents. Those are absolutely horrendous accents, but I think you got the idea. And there's a lot of the circle movements that you cannot get in Taminations or the other programs that you can do here, and you can demonstrate it, and you can also do it, you can also set it up if you're more comfortable with checkers. Alaman left, swing and promenade.
Home.
And away you go. I didn't say home, but you get the idea. So those are just a few of the things that will have been upgraded in Colorama, which is great. So I'm hoping to have him in to talk about that. And I believe somewhere in here, I'm not exactly sure. Normal. No, I don't want to save that. This mode. Layout. You can, anyway, you're supposed to be able to change this. I'm not exactly sure where it's done, but change it to 6 cubbles to set up for hexagons and a few other things in there. But we'll have to get the founder and the founding father that knows more about this to come in and actually talk about some of these changes. And then speaking of hexagons, Guido, if you're still up for it, I'd like to have you sometime in the new year come on and talk about your simplified versions of dealing with hexagons. I've got Dave Prescott coming in to talk about a few things. And I've sent out a list of a number of people of a number of topics. I think, Betsy, you probably got a list of about 400 topics to present on. Something like that.
Yes, I'm thinking.
So anyway, it's open. And most of these things I'm hoping to get scheduled when I get back in July. So the floor is open. If anybody has anything they want to discuss, choreo they want to look at, questions, comments, queries, points. We've got a floor of very experienced callers in here. Betsy, Jeff.
I have a question, and that is, since everybody really likes Taminations, I found that this program was a lot easier to use.
Which Taminations or Colorama?
Colorama is easier for me to use, but everybody around here seems to like Taminations.
Colorama I'm finding is getting easier to use. I still have issues with it, but I don't use it as much as I should. I find Taminations easier to use for me because I like to type things out longhand. As opposed to a point and click select, I like to type out my choreography. So for instance, in Taminations, now in Colorama, with the voice activation, I can say it and it will type it out for me, and now I can save the program. That was one of the other updates. You can save your long sequences that go into it. But for me, I like it this way. I can copy the sequences, put them in. Those are some of the changes that have updated in Colorama and a couple of the other programs as well. I just find this easier for me to use. But admittedly, I have not used Colorama as much as I should have to give it a fair view. I think Taminations is probably the popular one because at the time it was freeware and it was the program that was to give you how to dance the movement individually by the definitions. It would show it. It would have variations of the movement. It was something that dancers could relate to with a click and point or a type, and it was something callers could relate to with a sequencer. That at its developmental stage and its release phase was a fair ways ahead of everything else as far as the animation and the release goes. So they just got used to it and it became the standard. Are you saying something, Jeff? Or? No? Okay. And I think that's the reason, Ted, why most people like Taminations.
Well, I'm not a type. I don't really type. I'm very slow at it, one finger. And being able to speak makes it easier for me. That's the biggest thing is the voice recognition module. And with a little time and practice in Colorama, you can actually program it. You can also set the levels to the voice. You can actually even set accents, German accent, Swiss accent, Japanese, American. You can. I don't know if you can set Texan or New Jersey, but where is Michael still with us? Yeah, there he is. I don't know if they could set that for your accent, but with a little time and practice, it'll pick it up. And what you can also do is it's got a phonetic reader. So you can say, squar through. And if it doesn't pick it up, you can actually go in and go squar, SKWARR, squar. And it will then recognize squar as square when you're, and pick that up in the voice activation. So it's got the phonetic pickups. And those are things that he's built into the program. Yes, Chris.
I was going to throw something in because maybe there's some new people that are trying to make or thinking about anyway, making little checklists or notes or things in particular. And it's not about choreography. I don't think it got mentioned tonight, but it might have gotten mentioned, and I might have missed it. But on the subject of preparing for things, and it's not about choreography at all, just about equipment. It's a good idea to bring if you're looking for what should I have. Some people, of course, will say, well, have some kind of complete backup system, a second amplifier, speakers, and everything. Some people do that. The big one that I think is easy to do without having to carry a bunch of stuff around is be able to put some music on your phone. You can run Square View right on your phone, and there's other things you can do even if you don't have Square View on the phone. But just as a backup source, in case something goes hinky with your computer, you've probably got a phone. So if you load that up with some music, that's a backup music source right there. A spare microphone is always a good idea because they're a lot more fragile than you think. And also a spare microphone cable. And besides, if you have 2 sets of cables and mic with your kit, then if another caller shows up and you want to do a duet or something, you're prepared for that, but you've also got a backup because I've had those flake out on me before. Mm-hmm. And then another one, which is always a good idea, I think, is go out and get an extension cord, the really, really, really long ones, the excessively long extension cord. that you can get, any store or whatever, and throw that in your car. Even if you go to a place where 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 the outlets are and you go there all the time, and they have dances there all the time or whatever. Sometimes you're going to show up and you know what? Those outlets aren't working. And there's an outlet way over there at the other end of the room or someplace. And that one's working for whatever crazy reason, because here you are, it's half an hour before the dance, you're trying to set up and oh my God, the electricity's not, what the hell? So having a big long extension cord handy in the car there, you can say, oh, I got one that'll reach.
Actually, a point on extension cords, Chris, at the Home Hardware, the Home Depot, or whatever your equivalent is there, I recommend strongly going to one of the trade centers and getting one of the building extension cords. They come with a handle and a reel. It's all enclosed. It's about, you can get them 20, 30, and 50 yards or meters, depending on where you live. And it's so convenient because it's about the size of your laptop, a little bit wider. Right. You don't have to worry about winding the cable and rolling it up. You just unplug it and it rolls itself onto a contained spool. It's a lot easier to pack. I always carried one of those with me.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's just not a bad idea to have in your car, even if you're not a square dance caller.
Alan Kerr was with us a little bit earlier. I don't know if he's gone. But Alan, when he goes, he's got not only his system, he usually has a backup. He's got his microphone, he's got his remote mics, and then he's got this box. And in this box, he's got the St. Jones plug, the connector, the adapter to the little tiny 1/8 to 1/4 inch, the 1/4 inch to 1/8, and connectors and cables and all sorts of things that he just carries that with him. And it doesn't matter because somebody's going to show up and somebody's got one of those DAT things and it's going to plug into that, or it's got a 2-prong thing. So he's got the 2-prong stereo input to the single jack that plugs into the computer. And yeah, it's like I don't know if he's an electronics genius or guru from the past, but I don't think there's any kind of connection or joint or something that he can't bypass with one type of connection or 15 types of connection to make it work.
Yeah,
I've seen him do some amazing things at the last second.
Yeah, I've got the infinite connectors thing, but I'm trying to think of things that just are easy. And another one. Speaking of cables, the connector, just the little audio cable that goes from your computer into your amplifier. Those can fail, and when they fail, they'll do some pretty weird things sometimes. And what I found is that you can go buy very nice ones, online or wherever. But you know what else you can do? You can go to the dollar store, and for $1, you can get a perfectly good, mini phono plug, and they're $1. So I go in there and I get like 5 of them.
One of the
throw that in my bag, and if one fails, it's like, just the hell with it. And they're like, oh, you're throwing it away.
One
like
of
it
the
was
things that I
$1.
very, very, very strongly recommend is, especially with the changes of computers these days, because now a lot of computers are coming out with an SD card reader, a micro disc reader, a simple plug-in for your phone or for your zip drive, and an HDMI connector, and that's all they got.
Right.
And if you're like me, you have a remote mouse and keyboard. Once that's plugged in, you've got no more outlets. So I strongly recommend you go and get yourself a hub. Sorry, not a hub. A hub. It's not a dock. A hub.
USB hub.
And like I've got one just connected to my computer here. It's got 3 outlets on it. It's just a simple Belkin. It cost me.
Ross just shows one.
Exactly. That's the exact same one I got, Roz. Or you can buy one of the fancy ones that I just got for my wife and her sewing machine, where you can plug in your hard drive, your external hard drive. Each one has an on-off switch. They cost about $20 to $30. They've got their own little circuit breaker in it. That way you can plug it in. You can still have your mouse, because I like to use a mouse. I don't like using that little press pad on the computer. And somebody can plug their music in. If they've got a computer, they can plug it into the dock. If they've got something else, they can plug it into the dock. You don't have to be connecting and unconnecting and all that. It just wastes time. Just let them run it through your computer.
You know what else fails sometimes? And now I'll tell you, this has never happened to me, and I don't actually personally follow my own advice, but I'm going to pass this along because a lot of people like this advice. If your computer does have an audio jack, and most of them still do now, but newer ones are starting to not have an audio jack at all. What you do, the way you plug things in is you get an external USB sound card. It's just a USB dongle. You plug that in, and you use that as your sound source. And the thing is that the jack where you actually plug plug into the accepting part on the computer, that can fail, and when it does, no more sound output, right? So if you have an external dongle and then you plug into that thing, you're plugging into a replaceable thing. So you're not going to destroy the plugging in and out constantly on the computer. You're not going to destroy the sound jack on there. And
John's holding up one very similar to USB connected to a
right.
You've got a mic and a headset input.
Yeah, and it's a replaceable thing. So if that thing breaks, well, you can get another one. If the thing that's built into your computer breaks, you're just out of luck. That's for practical purposes, you're not going to get that fixed.
And that's what's going on with mine right now. I got static in my speakers.
Yeah.
And I think it's the connector on the computer, not the speakers. So
yeah, I've been lucky. I never do that. I always just plug in and out of the jack for my whole life, and I haven't had a problem. But so many people have had problems, and I felt that I should throw that one out there.
I did mention a lot of this in the presentation, not the specifics of the individuals, but to go through things, look at the extra cables, connectors, a microphone, a mic cord. Don't be looking at that for the last minute. Get some backup stuff, have it with you. Most of the time there'll be things, because what do you do when your microphone fails? Can you continue the dance a cappella, put the music on and call to a large floor without a microphone? Right. You've got to be able to project for a long time, and that takes a lot. I've done it. It takes a lot out of you in your voice. Yeah. Your voice was sore, Yolanda. Try doing that at the end of an evening in a full hall with no microphone.
When you've been doing this for a long time, and maybe you've purchased over the years multiple sets of equipment and all this and whatever, that's one thing, and having a bag of connectors for no matter who shows up with what that you can hook up on, all that kind of stuff. That's not what you necessarily need going right out the door if you're a new caller, but these are just some things that are a lot easier to get set up with duplicates of, and they're not going to kill you financially, and they come in very, very handy.
The easiest way to think. Sorry, go ahead, Yolanda.
I was just going to ask again, what was that audio thing called again? The one that Chris was just talking about.
He was talking a dongle. He said a dongle. A dongle is just.
People call them a USB sound card.
Yes.
It used to be in a long time ago on computers, when you didn't have universal plug and play things to plug in. You had to open the computer up and stick in a circuit card and get it in there, and that's where the card terminology can come from. But it's a dongle, and it's a USB sound dongle or a sound card.
And if you can see it, sometimes they're about that big, or sometimes they're the size of a USB card, a flash drive.
Yeah. And while we're at it, what I sometimes hear when people plug in their computer with a stereo plug into a mono input, or just have a mono output with a speaker, sometimes they get crappy sound because the sound file they use is stereo. So you don't want to have stereo on the stage, because you just don't want to have part of the crowd listen to the left channel and the other crowd listen to the right channel. You want to have everybody to listen to both channels at the same time. In your computer, you can go to, in Windows, you can go to the settings and select ease of access and set your output to mono.
You can still put it through both speakers, but
Yeah,
you get the same sound out of both speakers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think most of the equipment that people use for the amplifiers on stage will accept they're designed that you can plug a stereo cable into, because that's what's normal. If you just go get a normal audio cable, for your phone or whatever, for your computer, that's a stereo cable. But so without, and so usually the amplifier will take care of that. But yeah, I always go and set set it in software as well, just to make sure that there's nothing, because there's things that can go wrong, even though it's supposed to work. And again, don't forget those cheap. You can get the audio cable, just plain old, 1/8" regular audio cable. You can get those really, really cheap. And I've gone. Usually, I used to just buy a lot of expensive ones and think, well, they'll last and whatever. And I didn't really find that they lasted any longer than the cheap ones. And the cheap ones are so cheap. It's like, they're $1. It's like, if one breaks, it's like, whatever. And you got another one. You take it out of the wrapper right there, and you have another one. So you can't have too many of those. Especially, they're also really handy if you go and you're calling at a thing with multiple callers and people are coming and going off the stage, and all the business with the cables and stuff. A thing that you'll find that you will do this. You'll leave your cable there,
or you'll pick up somebody else's.
That's right. And the next time you go to call, you'll open your kit and you'll be like, "Where's my cable?" And it's like, I got 6 of them here. You want one?
One of the things you got to look at too is if I'm using a Hilton 300, I use the RCA sound input. If I'm on an MA220, you've got a mono plug that can sit onto the RCA socket.
And it's always a good idea to get the adapters for those.
I know, especially for the Hilton. If set your computer to mono output, you will get better sound in most cases.
Yeah.
Some recordings are fake stereo. They have the highs on one channel and the lows on the other channel, and many times you just get the lows in your Hilton, and it just sounds crappy.
Or you'll have the ones come across where when you have that, you put on and it sounds good because you're listening to it in a small room through your speakers, and it all sounds good because you're close up to it. But when you put it in a hall, you got the bass coming out of one side and the treble coming out of the other side, and you're all saying, "What the hell's going on?" And for you on stage, it sounds perfect.
If you have a Hilton, especially the new MA, the modern units, not the turntable. I suppose this could happen on the older ones too, but anyway, on the modern day Hiltons, if you're up there and you're on stage and suddenly the thing is going crazy, the music is cutting in and out, or the thing just like shuts down, or just crazy shit starts happening with your amplifier, don't panic. Go unplug all the microphone inputs from it. Go get another microphone input because you have your second one there, and plug the other cable in there and see if that doesn't magically cure all the problems, because I've seen that happen. Another reason to have 2 of those things handy.
But what I said just a moment, Yolanda, what I said about the mono setting, you will not find this in the audio settings. You will have to go to ease of access. There you can set it to mono. Your audio settings won't do it on Windows in the settings. It just that's one of the mysteries. Sometimes I believe they have apprentices as programmers, or somebody's leaving from Microsoft and the knowledge is gone and nobody else dares to touch it. To set your audio on mono, you have to go to ease of access and not to the audio settings. You will not find it there. It's not possible.
Yeah, if you're on the Mac, I don't remember where the setting is off the top of my head. It might be under audio, but it might be
On the
under
Macintosh, it's
accessibility.
easy. Is if you have a Macintosh, the easy fix for that is throw it away and get a decent computer. Yolanda, you had your hand up.
But I was going to say, there's one other place to look for those settings. You've got, the audio settings, the accessibility settings, and if you have it, another place to look where they hide stuff sometimes on audio settings is under MIDI. MIDI, the music interface. Even though it has nothing to do with the music interface, sometimes people hide audio settings under there as well. So those are places to go look.
Yolanda.
So one of the caller wives gave me this advice when the first time I did a multicolor event. She said, get the different colors of electrical tape and color code all your cords, and make sure that all of them have your name and your cell phone number on them. That if somebody and hang something off your laptop bag that's just yours, so nobody accidentally walks off with it unintentionally. I mean, I tried having a pink laptop bag at one point, and lo and behold, there was another lady caller that had the exact same one.
Yep. Same thing with the power supply, external power supply on your laptop. That's another thing that can get lost or confused at a busy setting.
Well, somebody had it those little microphone package cases. Everybody had the identical one, and the nobody knew who it belonged to. So they said, make sure that you tape your name and phone number in the inside of the case, or the outside even, right?
Always. And what you say about color coding, it's another advantage if you have a multicolor setup. Mm-hmm. Everybody has its own cable color. So it's easier to adjust volume of a microphone. If you say the green microphone is on and needs more volume, just go to the green microphone input. It's that was TV stations doing, or radio, when they have or on stage, all those microphones you see on TV or on stage when musicians play live, they have all different color codings.
Yeah, there is one big disadvantage to color coding your cables. It makes it harder for me to replenish my supplies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, just come to Prince George, and
I can't do that. You guys got a different power setting than we do.
I know, that's why I figured it worked. I'm safe.
Needless to say, there's a lot of information out there on equipment. There's a lot of things to think about in equipment that a lot of people don't really pay much attention to. That little plug that you put your sound input. Oh, it's pretty standard on everybody, but not everybody has that anymore. Some people use a USB connection. A lot of computers don't even have the jack output, so you need an adapter for it. All those little things that you won't think of are part of that planning and preparation phase that you go through to make sure that you have it, because you've got to think of those anomalies. I thought about asking Jeff if he had a turntable before I came down, because I still use records. When he was finished laughing, he said, yes, I do. It is just those kind of, he didn't actually laugh at me, but there's a lot of callers that still use records. There's a lot of newer callers that are picking up turntables and old record systems to learn with, and that's all they have. And some of them are doing some really good dances still on records and turntables because they haven't upgraded, because that's what they learned on and that's what they're comfortable with. It's those kinds of things that you have to be prepared for.
I did have an old Hilton 300 with the US power system in it, and so for the German grid I needed a transformer, and at some time I could just get tired of it, and a friend of mine wired a new AC adapter to it, and we put it in there, and while we were at it, we also replaced the speaker outlets and in the Hilton from the American 2-prong speaker systems there, the speaker plugs they have
Strange.
to speak on. And when I get to Hamburg, I had the Hilton in the car, and we did visit another club, and the club caller asked me to call, but I don't have a computer. I need to bring in my record player. And then he said, well, you can't, but my speakers only have these connectors, speak on. I said, doesn't matter. I brought in my Hilton and had the most modern speak on adapt plugs jacks in there. So this is also something.
Well, these are little things that need to be considered a lot. For instance, I had a Hilton 300, which I used in Europe, but it was American, and that was not a problem. I went back to Canada, so I didn't have to use the converter anymore or the transformer anymore, but I had to change the cycles because they have a different cycle power unit. When I came here to Australia, I had to use the transformer, but again, I had to change the cycles because it's a different cycle unit from Canada. And I bought I think it was Stenexalis in Sweden or Switzerland? Switzerland. Sten. I think he's in Switzerland. But I bought his old 75 and he had that shipped over to me. And all I had to do was change the plug because it's the same power and the same cycles. So be aware of that even when you're traveling. Betsy, I know she's faced that an awful lot when she's traveling, is because different power supplies, different things on the computers. But if you're traveling and you take your computer, you got to be aware of the power supply and everything else and the cycles of the power supply, because that can very, very strongly affect your computer as well as everything else.
I don't want to open up a huge can of worms here, but
never stopped you before, Chris.
Yeah, it's a little late for shouldas. Let me just talk for a second about an issue that may not. It doesn't come up for me anymore practically in a while, but there was a period of time when this was a real issue, and depending on where you live, it could still, and what kind of equipment you have and so on. This could still be a minor issue, but it's something to be aware of if you're, if you're starting out and you haven't hit this one yet. And that is, in the United States anyway, a lot of the time, if you go and you get booked for a dance, you'll notice on the contract that it says the caller will provide the sound equipment and the cuer is going to use it. Now, a long time ago, what that meant was you come in with your Hilton turntable and the cuer is actually going to get on your turntable and use it. They're just going to share it with you. Nowadays, people usually have, everybody's got a laptop, and so you have to make sure you have something for them to plug into. And if you just have, the modern Hilton thing that's got multiple input jacks, and it's no big deal. You just say, you're on microphone 4, and here's your input. And so that, but the talk about turntables is what I went to one place, and the cuer shows up and has records, and the unit that I had set up was not a turntable, because I thought everybody was digital, and they weren't. And luckily I had a turntable, because I had a complete backup unit. So I went out in the trunk of the car and got that and set it up for them. But that's just another thing. You just look at the contract, see what it says. Maybe call the cuer up, make sure that you understand what the equipment's going to be. Personally, I don't think the cuers should be using the caller's equipment, the speakers, or anything. That's my preference. Is look, set your own damn sound system up the way you want, and screw with it any way you want. Leave mine alone. You're a professional. Why don't you have your own stuff? But
I don't have a problem.
That's an idyllic situation when So you may have an issue or a challenge there. Just something to be aware of.
I don't have a problem with cuers sharing the equipment. I don't have a problem with cuers if, for instance, if they've got their program on a USB. Ideally, if they're working out of SquareView or one of those other programs, they've got that program loaded on their system so that when they put it in, they can just open up Square View with their own settings and work Square View off of your computer. And you can have two versions of Square View running at the same time.
But they want to go in on the amplifier and change your
No,
settings.
no. Just work with me. I have no problem with using the amps or any other kind of stuff, because that's easy enough to deal with. But what I would say, just to carry on your theme, is if you ever have a program that is shared, you should always get in contact with the person that you're going to be sharing the program with, whether it's a round dance queue or whether it's another caller or whatnot, to make sure that you all have compatible equipment or the compatible ability. It's very, very easy to get caught out. And, it's like,
thank you.
It's like I'm going to go to Roz's club and let's just say Roz uses only a turntable with records, and I show up with my, I got no connections. Well, now I'm got to rifle through Roz's club or record box to see if there's anything in there that I know how to call to, because that's what you're booked in to do. It's frustrating, it's time consuming, and it's something that could easily be mitigated with a single phone call beforehand.
We do actually use a turntable with records. We use an old Hilton with the records, but we use the computer. Mm-hmm.
Well, here in Germany, I know about a handful of callers that still use records. Everybody else is digital.
All our callers are digital except one, and one caller that comes down is still the record.
All our callers are live. We like real people. The music's digital.
All right. Okay.
Although I suppose one of these days we're not that far off.
Well, one of your suggestions, I did this for our 10th birthday. All the callers that called for our 10th birthday, we made microphone covers for them with their name on. And if they were silver microphone, they had a silver microphone instead of a black one. So, but that was handy that it's got your name on, as long as you put your microphone in there. Sorry?
Well,
I was just explaining a silver microphone is an award here in Australia.
Yeah, John's got one. So,
I don't.
Jeff's got one somewhere too. So
I don't.
So what do you have to do to earn one of those?
Come over and call.
They were a devil to make. but now a lot of the callers aren't unplugging them from there to save the cord. They're keeping the cord on the microphone itself and not unplugging that section. So next time maybe I need to do a bigger bag to put the cord in as well.
Oh, okay.
Because they said you could damage there. Jeff's got it there. Sorry, John's got it there. So.
Oh, one last thing on the on my rant about the cures. Usually, by the way, they do have their own equipment, their own speakers, their own everything. Because what do they do when they go and they call things that are just round dances and it's just them? So usually they actually do have all the stuff that they need in their car. They just don't feel like getting it out because they'd rather just have you do it.
One of the things that we found that the Hilton microphone lead, when you plug your mic in, the connector in the Hilton microphone lead sometimes wears, and you cannot replace them. You can't get a replacement for that, and so you've got to throw the whole cord away and get another cord.
Yes,
So
I've had that happen.
Connected. We don't pull them apart anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I still take mine apart.
You could unsolder it and install a new one to it.
Won't fit in the Hilton cord. The Hilton one is smaller inside and it's got shorter prongs. They're all different.
I've gone through about a dozen Hilton microphone cords over my career. So it's an unbelievable and huge number of them failed.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. I understand why Hilton still has a high impedance jack for microphones, because they seem to have bought 1 million of them in the 70s and they're still using them up. But the impedance adapter to change the low impedance microphone to the high impedance input on the mic on the Hilton is about $60. So this system makes Hilton unnecessarily expensive. A regular microphone cable with just these plugs, that's about 15 euros for a 6-meter cable, compared to 100 something euros for a Hilton cable. That's just too expensive.
Well, I found when I tried using one of those $15 ones that got way too much static.
He's not talking about the cable itself. There's an impedance adapter that's in the cable. If you're going to buy one of those, make sure you get the right cable. It's got the adapter built into it. There's all sorts of different, it's not just a mic cable. The cable's got the impedance adjuster in it. See what kind of microphone you have. If you have a high impedance, you may need a low impedance adapter, or vice versa. You know, those kinds of things you have to look at. They run about $40 for the entire cable. As opposed
when you look at microphones, commercially available microphones for people working on stage are all those microphones are low impedance. They have from 150 milliohms impedance from the regular Shure microphones to up to 600 milliohm impedance in electro voice microphones. This is about the range. And the Hilton has an input of about 10 to 15 kilo ohms. So you have to adjust that. When you plug in a microphone into a Hilton without the impedance adjustment, it's just low volume. You have to crank it up a little bit more. But a regular microphone cable is fairly cheap because there's nothing in there. It's just 2 plugs and 3 wires that doesn't do anything. And what they're made of is you have 3 wires. You have 1 ground wire, and you have 2 signal wires. And when you take your microphone, in 2 of those wires, the signal is exactly the same, but one is regular and the other one is turned about 180 degrees. So it's noise canceling by itself, and the amplifier puts it back. When you take a Hilton cable, it's no more symmetric. It's an unbalanced cable, so you pick up noises on the way. They don't cancel. And when I take a regular XLR cable, I can go for 300 meters without any loss of quality. When I take a Hilton cable, after about 3 meters, it starts to fade. So there's a difference in there. This is quality-wise. I never understood why they still have this high impedance input. I understand that they did have a whole bunch of them. They bought them cheap, and they have them, and they just use them until they don't have any more. And from all commercially available microphones, there is just one microphone that is high impedance that you find on the market. It's called the Green Bullet by Shure. And the Green Bullet is a mouth harp microphone.
Yep.
This counts as a musical instrument, and you plug it in a musical instruments amplifier, not in a vocal microphone input. But everything else is low impedance. And you always have to adjust the impedance from your microphone to the Hilton.
You can get a little XLR snap-on transformer at a, you know, like a music store. You can probably get it on Amazon or something.
I
Yeah, but
actually,
it cost about $60.
I actually went and got an adapter, and it didn't make it. It didn't fix the problem. So.
The fun part, the mishaps, what could happen. I was using those XLR cables for quite some time, and then I came to a club and they had their speakers. The input was an XLR, 3-prong XLR. So okay, I have those, I plug it in, and there was no sound at all. Back then, I didn't understand why. Now I know. These were regular speakers, passive speakers that were fired by the amplifier, and in the olden days they had XLR cables also for power lines, and so I put my unbalanced signal into that speaker, which expected a balanced input. And so it did noise canceling. There was no noise at all.
Yes. Yes.
No music, nothing.
Yes.
I had to go to my car and get my own speakers, my own system, because I just couldn't get any music out of the speakers.
I learned the hard way about balanced and unbalanced chords.
One of the things, just to drop off mics for a second, a lot of callers have switched over to Bluetooth.
It
Oh,
affects
sorry, John.
the pressure that you've got to put on to undo it.
Sorry, John, I think I cut you off there. Say that again. John?
Yeah. No, I was talking to my partner. She couldn't get the lid off my cup that we used last night.
Yeah, one of the things that has happened, a lot of callers have been switching to Bluetooth, going remote, Bluetooth with the mic, Bluetooth with the speakers, and various other things. It is a caution to be aware of. I wasn't attendance, but I had anecdotal on this, and it was a great story. But a dance was stopped because somebody was tuning their car stereo into Bluetooth, and their car stereo happened to be at exactly the same, because when they switched, it was scanned for devices and went connect all. And I don't know how the car was set up, but it connected to all nearby Bluetooth devices. And the music suddenly became the phone call of a guy to his girlfriend having an argument out in the car. So just be aware of that.
This is there was a Swedish guitar group called the Sputniks in the early 60s. And they, after the Russian satellite Sputnik was up in space, they called themselves Sputniks and had all those spacesuits and dressed up, and they were fancy and in technologically advanced. And in Paris, they had a concert, and they had all the guitars plugged in with radio transmitters to the amplifiers. And after 15 minutes of their concert, the police was coming in there, because in the entire radio system, in entire Paris, you could hear this Sputnik's concert live. So they had to go back to cables. So, and this is the same thing with the Bluetooth Mel just mentioned. That stuff happens.
Yeah, that happened with radio mics that I had, and anyone that was watching Channel 10 got all our square dance calling coming over their Channel 10.
Well, you could get some extra dancers out of it. Free advertising.
How many of you have any Sputnik music in your record box? How many of you ever heard the song Temptation Eyes? That's the Sputniks.
Oh, really? I thought it was the version I'm used to is from the Grassroots, I think.
In the 70s, I happened to buy a Sputnik's album to play along with. So I have 6 songs by the Sputniks without melody, just a rhythm track.
Hang on, I'm going to look up Sputniks here and see.
And why do I want to think the Grassroots were an Australian band anyway?
My favorite band. I went to a concert in Pleasanton in '66, and they were not the main group there. I can't think of the guys who did Time. Anyway, they were the head feature of the thing, and we got to the Saturday night to the finale, and they said there's not enough time to put two bands on, so we're gonna do Grassroots first. And they got booed, and they sat up and they started singing, and people were booing, and then all of a sudden it got quieter and quieter. It says, "Oh, they did that song. They did that song," and all of a sudden people were dancing on their seats in the auditorium.
Oh, you know what?
The whole time.
Right, Grassroots, not the Australian band. I was thinking of obviously Three Dog Night, but yeah, Grassroots is Temptation Eyes.
Yes.
Sputniks also did Temptation Eyes. It's more of a medley type version of it, but it's really good, and it's actually a lot closer to the Square Dance version than the Grassroots version.
Grassroots did. Oh gosh, just had it on my mind. Midnight Confessions.
Right. Yeah.
But as I said, there's a lot of really, really great music out there that is so undervalued. And there's a lot of really great square dance music that is undervalued. I always laugh when the conversations turn to modern music. We need more modern music. You know, quite frankly, I don't care. I'm never going to call a Justin Bieber song as a square dance or a Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball as a square dance, unless somebody's able to actually turn it into some decent music. But I will do 1947 or 1949 Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Now, off the topic of square dance music, really, but if you want to hear some fun versions of some popular songs, like things by Justin Bieber or maybe more recent things, and you want to hear a very different version of those songs, check out the group. You can find them online, called Postmodern Jukebox. Postmodern Jukebox, PMJB. And I'll just throw that out there. That's just something fun you can go look up.
My problem is when I record different things, like a song like Hey Lottie Lottie or things like that, the versions that I learned of those songs are not really fit for square dance audiences. I learned them in the military, and they had completely different lyrics.
Yes. Also, when you use that song in German, when you use Eladi Lade in Germany, the lyrics used to say "shit on the car roof."
Yeah.
In translated, gets flat at 108 at 180.
Yeah, I know all about transliteration as opposed to translation. It doesn't quite work that way. Transliteration is when you translate word by word, but you lose the meaning. Translation is you translate the meaning, but you may lose the words.
When you use transliteration, you need to be really good.
Oh yeah, it can get you into all sorts of trouble. Trust me on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for discussion. If anybody wants to look at anything in particular, or if you want to carry on with this discussion, if not, we shall call it an afternoon and or a morning or an evening or a midnight, depending on where you are in the world. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, does any
I don't know what you
have low level star choreography? I have a dancer that hasn't been on the floor for a while, and so I have very low level choreography that I can use. And does anybody have something really, with a zip to it, but it's low level?
When you say star
Preferably star.
choreography, are you talking and low level?
Like right hand star, left hand star, star promenade, that kind of thing.
Have you done a square through? Have they done a square through?
Yes.
Okay.
Have they done,
Yeah.
Have they done start of the square?
Pardon me?
That was make a right hand star, go halfway, and square through 2. And what was it? Oh, square through 4 hands, make a right hand star halfway, veer left, couple circulate. Star chain through was an excellent call.
And you don't want to start introducing a figure, but you can actually talk them through a star chain through. But I personally wouldn't.
What you could do is you have the let's say the typical head square through, right hand star, left hand star, back to the same 2, and swing your corner or whatever.
Yeah.
When you do this with the same thing, but you call first a heads or sides promenade half, square through 4, make a right hand star, go left hand star, go 1.5, find your corner, swing.
Yeah. Or you can do a halfway, and as you said, halfway, right and left through, veer left, Ferris wheel, square through. Any of those endings where you've got a corner box, right hand star, left hand star, back to the same corner box.
Okay. Those basically do an equivalent of a square through 4 and then do the star.
Yeah.
Great one. You could call a heads, do a left hand star, find your corner, make a right hand star with the sides.
I was just about to say that.
Anyway, Jerry's story had a great one. The inside couple, half sashayed, boy facing boy, girl facing girl, make a right hand star. The girls to the middle make a left hand star. Boys single file promenade, pass your partner once. Second time you meet your partner, slide through, and you're all home.
Yep.
That's a zinger.
Yep. And you can, another good one is on your corner box, that head square through 4, make a right or equivalent, make a right hand star, heads into the middle, make a left hand star, pick up your corner, star promenade, back out, boy, boy, girl, girl, circle left, boys swing the nearest girl. And it's exactly the same thing. It's just something a little bit different. For your openers, you've got, of course, you can have, as Guido was saying, heads make a left-hand star, make a right-hand star to your corner, back in, star by the left until you get back home. Or you can do make a right-hand star, find your corner, Alaman left, and carry on. And again, boys star left, Alaman left, do a do, si, do, men star left, pick up your partner, star promenade, girls roll back, box net, pull by, Alaman left, promenade. Any of those kind of star figures are good for filling out star. And stars are one of those very, very underused movements. Rick Hampton and Rod Shuping did a whole thing on stars as an underused movement, especially from lines, because stars are very, very underused from lines. And like what Bob was saying, you can do right-hand star 3/4 from a line of 4 and set up all sorts of different things.
For Yolanda, what I do with new dancers a lot, when I have an open house, I use calls with the stars, circles, right and left grand, maybe a swing and a promenade. But most often I prefer to do a do-si-do instead of a swing, because it's less teach time, needs less practice. And when I call, say, I do stars, all 4 boys make a left-hand star, find your corner with them, make it with your corner, make a 2-hand right-hand star, find your partner left-hand star, boys go in, make a right-hand star. So I mix them up, and you can have them entertained for 3, 4, 5 minutes with just stars.
You could
They
do
like
all
it.
night with stars.
Yeah, but in this case, they will like it, but after a little while, you should have some other choreography in the next tip. But what you can do is you can do a lot of it with two-hand stars. And there is something I also like to do, but this is kind of difficult with experienced dancers. They won't do it that easily. They say, with your corner, do a left-hand star instead of an element left, because I don't have that call yet. Left-hand star, find your partner, do a right-hand star, full turn around, find the right-hand lady, do a left-hand star, go full turn around, find the opposite, do a right-hand star, go full turn around, find the original corner, do a left-hand star, go full turn around, swing your partner.
Yep.
It's nothing but a right and left grand with stars. But graduate dancers, experienced dancers, they will have problems with that. New dancers won't.
Thank you.
And
later on, I'm going to play this back and write all this down.
I was just thinking.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
I
Because
just
some
see
of them are
Yolanda
too
going like
fast.
this. Oh, thank God I hit the record button.
Yes.
It's
called being prepared.
Yeah, what you're doing is a right and left grand, but instead of the pull buster, you do a full two-person right hand, left hand star. It's the same thing as a right and left grand.
Yeah. Well,
And
the one that I saw this one, it wasn't that, but you do an element left your corner, do a do side do, men star left, pass your partner, find the next girl, turn her by the right, girl star left, pass the next one, turn her by the right, men star left, pass her, turn her the next one, girl star left, and you can do exactly the same thing, but you're doing a full star in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as Bob would say, you can do an entire evening using stars as a theme and never repeat your sequences, just with a little bit of variety, or never repeat your tip themes. Just add something new to it each time.
Yolanda, do you know where you find the sets and orders?
I've got some of them. The little magazines.
Yeah, but all 444 are available online.
Oh, I didn't know that.
For free.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just let me zone out a little bit, and I find the link for you.
Okay.
Put it in the chat then.
Just did.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. There's on the Square Dance history pages, well, the caller notes are, there are the yearbooks, the sets and order yearbooks available also online for free, except for the last one. I have not found that yet online.
Found what?
And there you can look for stars.
I've been looking, like in Color Lab, and I've got the old teacher manual from the 80s and stuff. But I thought maybe you guys knew some really interesting ones that, because the new dancers really like those stars, right? Because it feels so different compared to some of the regular choreography.
Yeah. But it's one of the biggest misnomers is callers tend to think that dancers are going to get bored. And the reality is it's not the dancers that get bored, it's the callers that get bored. And callers end up making up too much crap in the sake of variety that they lose the whole focus of what they're there for, and that's to make it entertaining and fun for the dancers. And you can easily do this by, oh, I'm going to do star. Oh, okay. Well, I did a star left and a star promenade and a roll back and, a right arm turn and a left and a star promenade with the girls in the middle and backing out and, men's center, ladies sachet and on all this. And they're bored with it because I've done it twice. They're not bored with it.
No, I noticed.
They're having fun with it and it's successful. It feels that different. The only time they're going to get bored with it is if you do that over and over and over again and every night. There's a couple of callers that go around and they're traveling callers and they're great callers. But it's been said if you go to their dance in California and they happen to be calling in New York, you're going to go to the exact same dance.
Mm.
And, you know, they travel and they've got a program and a routine. Well, that's fine. But the dancers aren't good. They're not bored. They know what works. And they have 4 or 5 different routines and they vary their shows every year. But think about bands and concerts that go to, if you've got, say, Garth Brooks, if you're a Garth Brooks fan and he's touring around, that traveling road show is prepared, it's practiced, it's presented, and they've got, you know, 100 songs on their playlist. They've got 100 more that are practiced, but that playlist is 100 songs and they choose maybe 40 of them for each night. And those 40, let's just say they do 50 songs a night. 40 of those are going to be, every single night's going to have those 40 songs, but they'll have a variety of 10 and also leave it open if somebody puts a request in, you know, those kinds of things. It's the same show over and over. They're not bored. The audience isn't bored with it. That's what they come to see, is the entertainment. Yeah. Every show is an experience because every show has a different crowd. I don't like Alice Cooper as far as a musician goes, but I went to an Alice Cooper concert and my God, it was fantastic because of the crowd. I couldn't even tell you what he played. I thought the music sucked, but I had a great time because of the crowd and the ambiance that was in there. That's what the dancing's about. And that's what it's supposed to be.
I usually rip the head off the baby doll in the 4th tip.
Yeah.
Yolanda, I just put the link in there to the Square Dance Foundation of New England. There you have access to a whole bunch of old caller notes and also the sets in order yearbooks.
The yearbooks are choreographic indexes of what came up.
The little booklets have a lot of text in there, which also is very interesting. But the yearbooks have all the choreography in there. And then you can look for stars. You will find a wealth of choreography, especially in the old ones, where they didn't have that many calls.
Good idea. Thank you. Sometimes I just have to have a reminder that, you know, okay, I can find it here or there.
Download it on your computer.
If you had done your planning and preparation, you would have had all these things written down.
Actually, I am planning and preparing for 2 weeks down the road. Nice try. I've got my singers chosen, and now I'm working on my pattern.
Without using the terminology teacup chain, you could have 4 ladies center with the right-hand star and then walk them or call them through a 4 ladies teacup chain using stars. And that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you see,
oh gosh,
we have it easy talking like that. We have done all the work once, and we keep continue doing it.
Well, I thought maybe you guys had favorites, you know, that have been passed down from one caller to another that you can't find anywhere.
Yeah, that's why I said one of my favorites is the right and left grand using stars. While I do in open houses, I just improvise using stars, 4 dancers, 2 dancers. I say, hey, let's make a right hand star, find your corner, with your corner make a 2-hand star, find your partner, and then I go to boys and girls. Finally ended with the right and left grand. Just interchange right and left turns with stars. It's a lot of things what you can do, and you can keep them entertained because these calls are fast. They have to really listen, and the right and left grand and the promenade is relaxation, and then you go back on and they really have to be attentive.
Yeah, I called ladies in up to the middle and back, and boys up to the middle and back, and all of a sudden their faces were because it was something that they normally didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, so now it's like, okay, I want to get some stuff that's outside the box. That's still really basic, because that's about as basic as you're going to get. But because it was so basic, they hadn't heard it, so.
And Mel just put in the easy version, the simple version of Start the Route in there, in the chat.
Okay. Thank you, Mel.
Is Chris still there?
Yeah.
Chris.
He's muted.
He's muted. Chris, I don't know if you knew it, but I recorded a song, Bad Romance, which was Lady Gaga, but it was the postmodern jukebox version that inspired mine, and my
yeah, pretty good.
Was based on it. The music was based on it.
For the people who've never heard of them, they're a YouTube group. They've done a lot of touring, quite a bit internationally, and it started with this guy in his apartment in New York on YouTube. And what they do is they take popular songs and they rearrange them and reorchestrate them and perform them in a style that is very anachronistic. So that link that I put in there was the first one that I ever saw, which was a horrible, well, I don't like Justin Bieber, so all Justin Bieber songs are horrible to me. But anyway, some horrible Justin Bieber song, and they recorded it as a 1940s swing song. But they do a lot of different eras, and they take all kinds of different things, and they progressed a huge amount actually from that first one that I posted there. And so they have a huge catalog, and they've gone through quite a few different band members, and they're really quite a big thing, and with a huge amount of stuff to look at. So if you're just looking for something fun to a few of their things are like, yeah, that one's okay, but they have some really excellent, especially now they have some even better, and eventually they acquired some kind of famous guest artists to come on and sing with them and play different instruments. Anyway, they're just a lot of fun. The one that I posted there is like one of their first ones they ever put out quite a few years ago. But anyway, they're a fun phenomenon on the web to look at, and if you poke around there, you'll find at least something that they've done that will entertain you, because they've done a very wide variety of styles and different band members and so forth. The one constant is the pianist, who's the band leader, is Scott. I forget what's his name. Anyway, it's basically his show and a rotating ensemble of different people. Anyway, pretty fun.
Yeah, Weird Al Yankovic used to do that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that, only they're not making fun of it as much as they are just it's like Weird Al, except it's not exactly a parody. Then they don't normally change the lyrics, except that I've noticed that they never sing any of the swear words. But other than that, they don't really and there's the one little joke in that one that I posted there where this lyric is supposed to be, we're going to party like it's 1999 or some other year or something, and they changed it to, we're going to party like it's 1942 or something. But normally they don't mess with the lyrics or anything like that. If that one that you see there doesn't tickle your fancy, then look around, because they have a huge collection of recordings with all different vocalists and other performers in there too. So anyway, they're just a lot of fun. I discovered them a long time ago,
and they usually have somebody that tap dances along.
Yeah, they have. They've gone through several different little side performers there doing tap and some other little sort of novelty add-ons there. They have about 4 different versions of All About That Bass, featuring different bass players and playing around with the thing in different styles and singers. And they're they're just fun. It's a lot of fun.
They're entertaining. They really
Yeah.
are. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when you brought them up.
Yeah, somebody said something that triggered me.
True enough.
All right, guys, I got to go. So you guys take care and I'll catch you all next week then.
Okay. Bye, Scotty.
All right. Cheers, guys. Have a good week. Cheers. Bye.
Sun's coming up.
Yolanda, I posted in the chat, there's some various choreography that deals with stars using some of the older movements.
Okay. Thank you.
Including the one that Bob Elling was talking about, Star the Square, which is essentially a couple of right-hand star halfway square through two, and you end up with the same couples back to back. And there's also a couple of singing call choreographies using Star the Square.
Oh.
But as I said,
I never used Star through.
if you're going to use Star the Square, you're better off,
Starting from home.
turn the star halfway, face each other, square through two, talk them through that. And you can do that. If you're going to use the phrase Star the Square, that would be like a one-night gimmick throwaway workshop type thing.
Yeah.
But remember, that's only a star halfway, which is a very quick. It's the same as doing a circle left halfway. Yes, Jeff.
I did.
Yeah, I've got to leave, but a quick, easy singing call figure for you, for your learners. 4 ladies chain 3/4. Heads do a right and a left through. Sides pass through. Do a U-turn back, and everybody join hands, circle left. Everybody, there are 2 boys together, 2 girls together, but they got their corner alongside of them. Swing your nearest girl, promenade home. All right, but I must go.
Thank you, Jeff.
Just getting the best of me, so I'm going to have to go and eat.
No worries.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay. Well, I'm about ready to wrap up here as well, unless anybody's got something they want to really go over. Did you have your hand up, Guido, or were you just waving?
Oh, I was waving goodbye
All right.
to Jeff.
Adios.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, or if anybody has something they want to talk about, we can. Or if you want to look at something, we can. If not, I'm going to call it a session.
Well, I can't wait till Mark puts your video up on stage or on the Orange County College, so I can.
Well, I've sent him a copy of the PowerPoint. I've sent him a copy of the notes as well, and so all of those should be up there as soon as he's done.
Yep, and I sent him Hank Williams.
Great. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Mel. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Mel.
Bye. See you guys next week.